Welcome to the program. Good morning once again. My name is Victor Olo. It's rainy here in the capital city, Nairobi. I don't know what is the situation like wherever you are. We have been praying for this for quite a long time, and the president said yesterday that the drought affecting the country is the worst in 40 years. Now that's a long time. It all goes back to the issue of climate change, but hey, we have something to do about it. Let's plant trees where we can. This is Good Morning Kenya. You are right in time for your favorite show on In the Land. My name is Victor once again. Welcome to the program. Later on The Viewpoint, we'll be discussing the issues to do with the CBC. The public hearing and participation is ongoing, and the lady who is going to help us to talk about that is Professor Cherono, who is a professor based in the United States of America and part of the committee undertaking that process in the diaspora. What is it all about? What is it that it takes in the public participation? Stick around for that later on The Viewpoint. Welcome to the program. I'm Victor Lodori.
Yes, and just as you rightfully put it, what the president talked about yesterday, the ravaging effects of drought, and in effect to that, he pledged 2 billion more to just see how best they can alleviate this burden of drought. And also, in addition to that, they are looking for 10 billion from donors to see how they can curb this. We're talking about 29 counties, which the Red Cross has actually categorized, some of them in their alert phase and in their alarm phase. Also, later on in the program, this is largely what you're going to be dissecting with my guest there as we look at the effects of drought, intertwining it with land restoration to mitigate climate change. Because when we talk about drought, we can't miss talking about climate change. When we talk about climate change, we can't miss talking about drought. So clearly that and so much more lined up for you this Wednesday morning. Many thanks for making time. I'm Doreen Arange Okello. Good morning, Ray.
We have a lot in line for you in regard to stories that have been making headlines in the last 12 hours, including the drought situation that yesterday saw Kenya lose one of its favored elephants, and I'm talking about Dida, who succumbed to the effects of the drought there. Remember, the drought does not, segregate when it comes to its adverse effects. It also means that if it is dry in your shamba and you're finding it hard to actually make do, or rather, harvest, you can imagine what is happening in the grassland, savanna, as well as a forest. So we're in this together at a time when government is really working hard to work with international donors to just try and, mitigate on the adverse effects of the famine that is hitting the country owing to matters drought. That and so much more, including what is happening in the air transport field, where the Kenya National Carrier KQ standoff between the management and the pilots is ongoing. Good morning once again. This is In the Headlines. For now, we take a quick breather. We'll be back with the news. Just in case you had a bad evening and a terrible morning, I just want to remind you that it is time, finally, for your hard work to pay off. I'm Regina Manyara, and this is In the Headlines. Now we start off with those stories where government has set aside 2 extra billion shillings to tackle famine in the country. Speaker in State House, Nairobi, where he was installed as the patron of the Kenya Red Cross Society, President William Ruto appealed to the organization to incorporate climate change in its scope of activities and mobilize communities on the government's tree planting program.
President William Ruto was on Tuesday installed as the patron of the Kenya Red Cross Society at State House, Nairobi.
I humbly accept your invitation to serve as the patron of the Kenya Red Cross. And I want you to know that I am aware of the magnitude of this role and proud to be associated with you.
We have 240,000 members and volunteers. 80% of them are young people. So they are really our backbone in terms of our human resource, and they are the ones who are always out there.
It is here that the head of state announced that the government had made available an extra 2 billion shillings in addition to the 3.2 billion shillings given earlier to tackle famine in the country.
We have already deployed 300 million worth of food to 10 most affected ASAL counties. Because the situation is both urgent and the situation is also dire, we have agreed that additionally to the 3.2 billion shillings government already made available, we are making again this morning an additional 2 billion shillings to support this food distribution mechanism.
The president appealing to the Kenya Red Cross to incorporate climate change in its range of activities as part of mitigating the impact of climate change.
The climate change has even affected the tea production. And what they are saying is in the next 10 years, Nandi County has been put to be among the red flag because of the issues of climate change.
The president saying that effective and transformative collaboration was key in the wake of unprecedented wave of challenges.
We are in the grip of the worst drought in 40 years. We have a lot of work to do in mitigating its effects, doing everything we can to ensure no life is lost and building resilience in our communities.
The head of state urged the Kenya Red Cross Society to use its capacity to mobilize communities to complement the government's tree planting program.
I request you to use your existing capacity to mobilize communities and volunteers to complement our tree planting program. It is our aim to plant 5 billion trees in the next 5 years.
Now, Kerio Valley Development Authority has constructed dams and water pans in the North Rift region to boost water harvesting as a way of mitigating effects of drought. Residents in the region have welcomed the intervention, saying it will end the fight of water resources between humans and wildlife.
2 water pans and subsurface dams have been constructed in the North Rift region to serve residents and their livestock.
Drought, mambo ya ukame, imesiti kwa taifa letu la Kenya. Na tutataka sisi wote tuungane mkono ili kupikana, ili tutatue na kusaidia wananchi wetu.
Hata alikuwa tunaenda mpaka usiku kuchota maji. Na yeko ngine hawezani kuchota maji wakina mama wazee. Ile mama alikuwa na watoto wadogo, hata alikuwa woni mwenye alikuwa anawashia watoto. Lakini tulikuwa tunashukuru sana.
Kerio Valley Development Authority Managing Director Sami Naporos observed 50 million shillings has been set aside for the project in Meru County, adding that the authority has embarked on formulating long-term drought mitigation measures.
Na haya maji yanapopatikana yataenda kwa kiwango kikubwa kuhakikisha kwamba kuna lishe bora na kiu itapungua katika eneo hili.
This, as the weather forecast indicates that most parts of the country are likely to have a late onset and early cessation of rainfall. Highland east of the Rift Valley counties, including Nairobi area, onset dates are 4th week of October to 1st week of November, and cessation dates are 3rd to 4th week of December this year. In the southeast lowlands counties, onset dates are 1st to 2nd week of November, while the cessation dates is the 3rd to 4th week of December this year. For the coastal counties, the rainfall is expected between the 3rd to 4th week of November and 3rd to 4th week of December this year. In the northwestern counties and northeastern counties, the onset and the cessation dates of rain are undefined.
Continue keeping tabs on that. Now, Information, Communication and Technology as well as Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo has promised to help the state broadcaster Kenya Broadcasting Corporation improve its infrastructure and content generation to match the world-class trends. Addressing the staff of the corporation on his maiden tour since his appointment as Cabinet Secretary, Owalo pledged to provide every required support to the corporation and to execute its mandate fully. Ali, the CS held a closed-door meeting with the corporation's board to acquit himself with the operations of KBC.
Internationally,
KBC must be repositioned so that it gets back to being the market leader. Yes. There is no justification in KBC with the brand that it has, the infrastructure that it has at its disposal, playing second fiddle to new entrants in the market.
The CS said the ministry will work with KBC to enhance performance through revived content, improved infrastructure, and look into the pay structure of the staff.
That apart from the job evaluation exercise which is undertaken by SRC, we as KBC will also undertake our own internal job evaluation so that we are able to see how we are performing with respect to the salary and benefits levels in comparison to other comparators in the marketplace.
KBC's acting managing director, Samuel Maina, who was the host, hailed the cabinet secretary for seeing fit to visit the institution and engage with staff.
Sasa, the love for KBC starts with our captain, who is the CS, okay? Na mambo itafanyika hapa. Hapa mambo itafanyika. So all of you, please prepare for takeoff. I told you hii ndege iko kwa nini? Kwa runway, ready for takeoff. Now the pilot has been appointed. Sasa inatoka runway iende wapi? And we achieve the cruising speed.
The KBC board chairperson Benjamin Maingi said it was encouraging that the CS is passionate to ensure the state broadcaster adopts international best practices in broadcasting.
It is not every other day that a cabinet minister humbles himself to this level and comes and meets the board and all the staff. So it's quite a privilege, and it talks volumes on where we are heading. Openness and transparency.
The staff pleading with the CS to confirm the acting managing director, Samuel Maina, who has been able to achieve much in a short period he has been at the helm.
As and when anything comes to my attention with respect to management of KBC, I'll deal with it based on what is required of my office. And consider me part and parcel of this family.
KBC has revamped news and programming content both in radio, TV and digital space to match the taste of its audience and the dynamic market. The national broadcaster continues to execute its mandate. Part of this is bringing you unmatched coverage of events as they unfold. For instance, starting 20th of this month, KBC Channel 1 will bring you live coverage from Qatar, which will be airing through to December 18th. KBC, your true sports partner, will broadcast 28 matches live from Qatar.
I hope you have diarized that, and come November, that is, we're already here, yes, 18 days to go. Have you picked your side? I understand a couple of people are already rooting for Brazil. Well, if you haven't picked your team, well, it's a high time you picked your team so that as we're televising that, yes, you can have some banter to exchange with us as well as your friends and family. 18 days to go. Now, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, says Parliament is committed and will play its legislative and oversight role to the executive benefit of Kenyans. Now, speaking in an interview with KBC Radio Taifa, Wetangula noted that watchdog committees, such as the Public Investment Committee, have been split to ensure timely oversight of utilization of public resources by government institutions. Wetangula at the same time says the drought situation will be given priority in the supplementary budget set to be tabled before the House.
Into government investments and use of taxpayers' money by Parliament will now be efficient and timely. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, says the division of Public Investments Committee into 3 watchdog committees will seal oversight loopholes that previously existed.
Kamati moja kwa mwaka moja ikishughulika na mambo ya plenary ya bunge na kamati. Kuna nafasi za wabunge kwenda safari za nje au safari za nje ya Nairobi kwenda kufanya kazi. Ilionelewa ya kwamba kamati moja haiwezi kushughulika na investments za serikali at the central government, waende kwa parastatals, waende kwa taasisi zingine, ndiyo ikavunjwa mara 3.
In an interview with KBC Radio Taifa, Wetangula said Parliament will exercise its independence to deliver to Kenyans. Commenting on the drought situation affecting millions of Kenyans, the National Assembly Speaker said,
pale ninapokaa kama speaker, nitahakikisha ya kwamba bunge letu linapitisha hoja na mipangilio inayoletwa na serikali kuhakikisha ya kwamba Wakenya ambao wanaathirika na ukosefu wa maji na chakula wana uwezo wa kusaidiwa na serikali na taasisi ambazo zinahusika. Unajua kikatiba, serikali haiwezi kutumia pesa bila kuja kupata idhini ya bunge. So wakileta supplementary budget, hata nitaweka kando kila kitu.
According to Wetangula, 2 legislators have already shown interest in moving a motion that seeks to entrench the Constituency Development Fund and the Hustler Fund into the Constitution.
So this afternoon, I'm giving them the first opportunity under this standing order. Ili kueleza bunge ni sheria gani wanataka kubadilisha, kipengee gani cha bunge wanataka kubadilisha, ni nini wanataka kuleta katika katiba, na wataweza namna gani ku ring fence CDF na other special funds kama ile affirmative action, hata hii hustler fund nafikiri nimeona imewekwa katika mswada.
The former Bungoma senator has pledged to throw his support behind the Ford Kenya candidate for the Bungoma senatorial by-election that also has a United Democratic Alliance party candidate.
Now, that particular exclusive interview was the first for the legislator there, who is a Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, there to ever be recorded on the media. And KBC Channel 1, as we said, we were there and we did that recording. You can get a clip, a recap of that on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. Now, a section of education stakeholders are calling for the abolishment of the delocalization of teachers and retaining of boarding schools, even as the government seeks to fully implement the competency-based curriculum. The calls were made on the first day of the public hearings convened by the President Working Party on education reforms. Ruth Wamboi has the details.
Day 1 of the public engagement by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms saw a beehive of activities across the country. The Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms chairperson Raphael Munavu led a section of the committee in pitching tent at Lodwar Boys High School in Turkana, where they collected views from teachers and parents.
There are issues that are being raised, and they are very important ones to listen to, and we are being requested to consider issues of marginalization, issues of, for example, safety of our children, and also feeding programs, especially in seasons of drought.
To ask the government to give adequate funding to CBC programs. CBC is good, it's a well-thought idea, it makes children to participate in learning practically.
But now that this change has already occurred, we still need to look at this critically and see whether the students and the learners are ready for it.
In Busia County, a section of the stakeholders proposed that the junior secondary schools should be domiciled in primary schools based on the argument of the age of the learners, among other recommendations.
Issue of funding, the expense, the issue of training, preparation, those are some of the main highlight issues that I would like maybe just to throw to this audience.
But the government should consider the issue of teaching sciences so that we have laboratories in primary, because that is a major challenge that will affect
which help an individual and community.
In Migori County, education stakeholders told the team led by Professor Colin Sodote to consider setting aside more days for deliberations.
We've had conversations around the costs of CBC, a huge issue that we raised with us. We have had submissions and suggestions about the transition. We have had submissions about teacher preparedness. We've had submissions about parental involvement.
Members of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms also collected views in Nyandarua, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Marsabit, Mandera, and Samburu counties. On Thursday, November 3rd, 2022, The committee will hold public hearings in Mombasa, Makueni, Nyeri, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bungoma, Nyamira and Homa Bay counties. The public engagement will run until Friday, November 11, 2022.
Opportunity as a parent, as a stakeholder in whichever capacity, to air your views to this working party there. So maybe we can get a way forward, given that this year alone we're going to be seeing, students transiting through the 844 system as well as the CBC system. Now, still on matters education, is that the Teacher Service Commission is set to appear before the National Assembly Education Committee over delayed promotion of teachers. Speaking after being elected as chairperson of the Education Committee, Tinderet Member of Parliament Julius Mellis said the committee's top agenda will be to address the welfare of teachers, particularly promotions.
With each chairperson stipulating key agendas for his committee, Education Committee members unanimously elected Tinderet MP Julius Mellis, and he will be deputized by Malava MP Malulu Ijendi. Speaking after the election, the chairperson indicated the committee will be inviting Teacher Service Commission over the delayed promotion of teachers.
That is the question that we want to ask the TSC actually to appear before us. They have money and the teachers are not being promoted. And I think we'll ask the commissioners and the Teacher Service Commission to immediately appear before this committee and tell us why are teachers not being promoted yet there is money.
Information and Communication Committee similarly elected Dagoretti South MP John Kiarie and Bomachoge Chache MP Alpha Miruka as chairperson and vice chairperson respectively. Kiarie, who served in the committee during the last parliament, committed to ensure the committee sponsors legislative proposals to unlock the potential in digital economy.
The committee in the 12th parliament was able to pass not less than 4 very critical laws in the last parliament. We believe we shall be able to do much better.
Mola MP Vincent Musyoka, assisted by Narok East MP Ken Aramat, will lead the Energy Committee as it endeavors to ensure the cost of energy is lowered.
The issue of the cost of energy is not by mere production and also the taxes. The issue we are facing with the cost of energy is because we have allowed cartels who produce thermal power, which is extremely expensive, to continue operating in the name of some contracts that were signed long before that we are not able to vacate.
Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee elected Belgut MP Nelson Koech as chair and Mandera North MP retired Major Bashir Abdullahi as deputy. The duo committing to look into eradicating corruption in recruitment of Kenya Defence Forces as a matter of priority.
How are we going to deal with the challenge of corruption, especially on recruitment of officers? It is something that we'll take up as the leadership of the committee with the Ministry of Defense.
I was a recruiting officer before. I know what it takes. But you understand there's a lot of competition. Everybody wants to be first. But I can assure you these things will improve.
Other committees that elected chairpersons include National Administration and Internal Affairs Committee, Finance Committee, and Sports Committee, among others.
We'll be keeping tabs on those committees there, especially when it comes to matters of policies and legislation that they're going to be working on for the betterment of the country. Now, still focusing on what is happening at the National Assembly is that Samuel Josphat Njoroge is the new clerk of the National Assembly after the House on Tuesday approved his appointment by the Parliamentary Service Commission. Njoroge's appointment was endorsed by 162 members against 94 in a voting exercise. The National Assembly divided over his suitability to take up office. Njoroge, the immediate former Director, Legislative and Procedural Services, becomes the 7th clerk of the National Assembly and succeeds Michael Silali, who retired on July 31st this year. Deputy Clerk Sarah Kyoko had been holding the position in an acting capacity since August 2022.
Next, Honorable Kainan.
A special motion moved by Eldas, Member of Parliament Adan Kainan, representing the Parliamentary Service Commission and seconded by his INAPCOI counterpart Samuel Chepkonga, to have the House approve the appointment of Samuel Josephat Njoroge as Clerk of the National Assembly, elicited varied opinions, leaving the House divided.
This House approves the appointment of Mr. Samuel Njoroge as the Clerk of the National Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. Honorable members. Order. This is a motion that is squarely in your hands. You don't defeat or approve a motion by speaking or shouting loudly.
Acclamation did not settle the matter, leading members to the ballot, where Njoroge's fate was sealed in the first round.
Honorable Speaker, the results of the voting on the special motion on appointment of the Clerk of the National Assembly results are as follows. The ayes 162, the nays 94.
The ayes have it.
Following his appointment, the 43-year-old Samuel Josephat Njoroge will now assume office as the 7th Clerk of the National Assembly, succeeding Michael Sialai. The Parliamentary Service Commission considered 48 applications. 4 candidates were shortlisted for the position, namely Deputy Clerk of the National Assembly Sarah Kiyoko, who was holding the clerk position in an acting capacity, Samuel Josephat Njoroge, Mohamed Ali Mohamed, and Eunice Wanjiku Gishangi. Njoroge, who was serving as the acting Deputy Clerk of the National Assembly, has 19 years' experience as a parliamentary officer, having been employed in 2003 as a third clerk assistant.
Now, before we usher our first break, is just to answer some of the questions that have been asked on Twitter by various viewers. Dan Okot, who is watching from Kajiado, is asking if the rains are going to hit Kajiado since it has become a desert. Well, the Meteorological Department sent out a statement in regard to the weather patterns, and also we did an adequate story about the same, so you can check out our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, as well as Davis Gesoshoke, who is a farmer and he's in Laikipia and currently in Meru there. You need to be on the lookout for that. Thank you for watching, as well as Tom Wema, who is watching from Nairobi, saying that it is indeed raining. You can be part of this conversation. Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1. For now, we take a quick breather. We'll be right back.
Ni nini mbaya na nyinyi? Kwa nini mnanitafuta? Mimi tutakosana na nyinyi, sitakagi hiyo mchezo. Kwani mko wapi? Mnafanya nini hapo? Ati muna watch World Cup? Ngojea kidogo. Hata sitaki kukasirika tena. Jamani, mafansi wangu, hamjambo. Mimi ni Mama Kayaiwa Vitimbi. Ningependa tu kuwaelezea kwamba KBC Channel 1 peke yake ndio itaonyesha World Cup. Yangu ni kuambia watazamaji wote msikose kuwatch World Cup katika KBC Channel 1. Asanteni sana na kwaherini. Basi endeleeni kuangalia. Yes.
Kakamega mpo. Stesheni uipendayo Ingo FM inakuletea road show ya mwaka katika kaunti ya Kakamega, Ijumaa tarehe 4 na Jumamosi tarehe 5 Novemba. Tarehe 4 Ijumaa tunazuru Mumias, Matungu, Shianda, Navaholo, Malava, kambi ya Mwanza, Lurambi, na tarehe 5 Jumamosi tukutane pale Kakamega, Hayega, Malinya, Bukura, Huisero, Mulwanda, Sabatia, Ekero na Mumias Town. Kutakuwa na vichekesho na burdan dosha. Pia utakutana na kikosi kizima cha watangazaji na waenzi wa Ingo FM. Usikose.
Radio Ingo, ingini ya Mwitala.
Kakamega na yefu bwana.
Just look at the
So come November 2022, France is going to be taking on Mexico in the World Cup. So which team are you going to be rooting for? Mexico versus France. We'll be sampling your feedback on our Twitter handle, that is at KBC Channel 1, and my personal one is at Ray Manyara. What do you think this is going to end up, or which team are you rooting out for? Remember, KBC Channel 1 is going to be broadcasting these particular matches in the next 18 days, so do save a date. Now on to matter security. Now police in Kakamega are investigating an incident where a middle-aged man was allegedly shot dead by a criminal gang. Hamisi Police boss Ruth Lagat says the 30-year-old Hilary Amalemba was killed by an armed gang while at his shop and made away with 150,000 shillings and a known value of gold.
Hilary Amalemba was allegedly shot dead while in his shop by a gang which made away with 150,000 shillings and a gold of unknown value.
Polisi ilikuja kurokota tu na ikaenda. Na walirokota hapo kitu, ile kitu makandi ya risasi. Na nisikizia OCS wa Selimi akasema hii risasi hii ilitokana, hii marisasi ya serikali tulipeleka headquarter jana kwa Kakamega kwa ofisi kuu.
Locals saying insecurity situation in Hamisi constituency is on the rise. Tulu, Makuchi and Shaviringa the most affected.
Mtusaidie. Mapolisi wetu wanataka tu mtu akipita na pombe wanazichukua. Lakini sisi wa mama na vijana wengine wanasema sisi tumekaa Kenya kani.
Hatuwezi kuwa na polisi 12 Cheptulu kwa population kama hiyo.
Langat says the CCTV cameras captured the gang 5 days ago in a robbery mission where they made away with more than 1.5 million shillings.
Alikuwa anahudumia watu, hako na duka ya kawaida. Akiwa anaendelea kuhudumia watu, ndio watu wawili waliingia ndani. Na walipoingia, mmoja akakaa kwa mlango, mwingine akaingia akapiga teke ile mlango ya duka ndani. Na alipoingia tu alishika jamaa akaroselia down na akamuitisha pesa ila ako nazo.
Security imekuwa chini sana, watu wamekuwa kutibia na mabunduki. So we urge the government at least ifanye mpango na deployment officers at least on the site.
The locals are now living in fear and want the government to intervene and deal with the gang ruthlessly.
Tuko na issues nyingi touching on security, touching on banditry and so on. This incident is not an isolated incident. We have had similar incidents in several areas.
Sisi tunaenda kupiga firimbi na tutataka kila mtu atoke so that hata Mheshimiwa Rais Ruto ajue hii maneno. Na tunataka tuambie Mheshimiwa waziri mpya Kizure Kindiki.
Now, 5 police officers who were charged in 2019 with the murder of a suspect in Kwale in custody have been released on a bond of 1 million shillings each by a court in Nairobi. The officers are believed to have caused the death of a suspect who was arrested in 2018 on suspicion of having illegal alcohol at the Changamwe police station in Mombasa County.
Of relief for Khalif Abdullahi Sigat, James Mulikoti, Joseph Odhiambo Sirawa, Edward Kongo Nchonga and Nelson Kanae after the High Court ordered their release on a cash bail of 800,000 each with an alternative bond of 1 million shillings each. The 5 who are police officers have been in custody for the past 3 years after being charged with the death of Caleb Otieno, who was arrested on suspicion of illegal alcohol possession at Changamwe Police Station, Mombasa County in September 2018. During the hearing of the application for bail, the defense lawyer told the court that since the accused were arrested in 2019, no single evidence had been adduced in court and the officers were not a flight risk. Trial Judge Justice Bonwonga concurred that the accused had been in custody for a long time without the hearing taking place and their liberty and constitutional rights had been violated. The matter will be mentioned on November 15, 2022. Elsewhere, a suspended police officer who is alleged to have conspired to defeat justice by forging his wife's signature in an occurrence book at Dandora police station has been released on a 200,000 shillings bond. Daniel Mutisia is accused of forging the signature of Josephine Mutindi Kithu on a withdrawal letter of a case he is facing. He was also charged with abusing authority of his office when he fraudulently uttered a forged withdrawal letter before Milimani Children's Court as a documentary evidence purporting it to be genuine. He allegedly committed the offense on January 10, 2019 at Dandora police station with others already charged in court. Milimani Chief Magistrate Wendy Misheni directed the case to be mentioned on November 14, 2022. Finally, former Kenya Ports Authority Managing Director Daniel Manduku has petitioned the Director of Public Prosecution Nurdin Haji to review the anti-corruption case against him. When the matter came up for hearing before Trial Magistrate Francis Wakumire on Tuesday, the defense lawyers applied for an adjournment to allow the DPP to make a review for further directions. Manduku, now the Nyaribari Masaba Member of Parliament, and his co-accused Juma Fadhili were charged with abuse of office in a case where they were accused of misappropriating over 928 million shillings belonging to KPA. The case continues on November 29, 2022.
Now let's cross over to Meru County, where the rift between Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza and the ward representative continues to widen after the Assembly rejected 7 of her nominees to the executive. In a new twist to the escalation of the wars, the entire Assembly unanimously agreed to adopt the report by the Appointments Committee that cited lack of relevant work experience in rejecting the 7.
The war between Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza and the 69-member County Assembly is far from over. From the clashes witnessed during Mwangaza's State of the County address 2 weeks ago, the MCAs have also written to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, citing the governor for alleged nepotism in the running of the affairs of her office.
Will as many as of a similar opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Now the ayes have it and the motion is passed.
Tuesday, the war hit fever pitch after the Assembly unanimously adopted a report of the Appointments Committee that rejected 7 members Governor Mwangaza had appointed to be in her cabinet.
Based on the foregoing observations and conclusions and pursuant to the provisions of Section 9, Subsection 2 of the Public Appointments Act 2017, the committee draws the following recommendations. 1. That this Honorable Assembly rejects the nomination of Mr. George Gikunda Mungania, the nominee for the position of CECM in charge of the Department of Health Services.
Out of the 10 CECs vetted a week ago, Lands, Physical Planning and Urban Development nominee Japheth Dumba, Youth, Sports, Gender and Social Development nominee Kasti Misheni, her Health Services counterpart Dr. George Gikunda Mungania, Water, Irrigation and Climate nominee Bishop Kiambi Atheru, Agriculture, Fisheries and Veterinary nominee Caroline Kaberia, Roads and Energy nominee James Mudhomi, Esther Kareminjeru of Trade Cooperatives and Tourism were all rejected. The committee citing lack of relevant work experience in batting the seven.
Is this exercise that we did as a committee of appointment where I was privileged to serve, and I can say without any fear of contradiction that we were guided by meritocracy and we vowed never to entertain a kakistocracy.
The few have not made it. They live to fight another day. And Mr. Speaker, I urge the Honorable Governor Kawira Mwangaza to expeditiously go and come up in another list. Let her bring the list to this Honorable House, and the Speaker will look at the list with the nominees, and the Speaker will go ahead and vet.
The committee, however, approved Public Service, Legal Affairs and Services nominee Dixon Kanata, Education, Science and Culture nominee Dhuranira Joseph, and Finance nominee Monica Kathono. The widening cracks come amidst reports that Governor Mwangaza has convened a reconciliation meeting on Thursday with the MCAs, with Meru Senator and area members of Parliament expected to attend as mediators.
We'll be keeping tabs on what is happening in Meru County there. It is a question of who blinks first, the governor or the members of the county assembly. Now we speak matters business, where small and medium enterprises in the coastal region are set to benefit from a sensitization forum by ABSA Kenya in partnership with the Kenyan National Chamber of Commerce and Industry aimed at boosting growth. Details of this and other stories from the corporate scene. The fishing industry in the coastal region is valued at 300 billion shillings annually, while semi-commercial crops such as coconut, mango, cashew nuts and sugarcane are other huge economic drivers, largely dominated by small to large agribusinesses. To tap into this, ABSA Bank is undertaking a tour targeting SMEs in Kwale, Taita Taveta, Mombasa and Kilifi. The Coast Region tour comes in the backdrop of a similar engagement in the Western region, where the bank engaged more than 1,000 SMEs across 5 counties, namely Kisumu, Kisii, Bungoma, Trans Nzoia and Uasin Gishu, to boost capacity.
To us, you are such an important business community because we know SMEs are the ones that drive the economy and even the economy here.
Sisi kama serikali katika mambo ya biashara, sisi hatufanyi biashara, lakini tunasaidia wafanyi biashara. Na kusaidia wafanyi biashara kwanza, tuna partner na washikadau.
And Kangema constituency has set aside land for the construction of affordable houses. This comes after President William Ruto toured the county and announced plans to build 2,000 units of affordable housing targeting Kangema, Mathioya, Kandara and Maragua constituencies.
But in 2 acres, there are around 0.4, which we want to talk with the people who were allocated. But somehow it was so glaring, somebody being allocated a plot whereby there is a government house for DCI, another house, RAD, where there is a house for OCPD, I think OCS. I think those are glaring. The people should have understood that this is a government RAD.
Finally, KCB Kenya has set aside 250 billion shillings targeting women-led and owned small-medium enterprises across the country within 5 years.
To make it worse, women hold only 10% of registered title deeds in Kenya, which makes it difficult for women-led SMEs to access higher amounts of credit, usually supported by collateral, mainly secured credit.
The facility will enable women entrepreneurs overcome business challenges by providing working capital and other critical non-financial needs to sustain their growth and overall spur socio-economic growth.
Financial inclusion is a major driver of economic development, especially in developing countries. However, access to financial services by individuals and enterprises is still limited across Africa. Gender plays a particularly important role as women are much more financially excluded than men.
Additionally, women entrepreneurs will also be able to get non-financial support extended by partner organizations, including marketing and bookkeeping. Now it is 18 days to the World Cup, and Juventus midfielder Paul Pogba. It's the latest player to set to miss France World Cup campaign as he continues his recovery from a knee operation. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Association of Football says they will write a letter to FIFA requesting Iran to be banned from the 2022 World Cup in Qatar for systematic human rights violations. The 2022 World Cup finals kick off on the 20th of next month, actually. And KBC Channel 1 will be live on KBC Channel 1 TV. That is 18 days to go. We're already into November there. So saying next month, that is quite a misinformation there. But we are set to begin this in the next 18 days. We are already in November. So do set that date. And the date is 18 days away. Here's a recap.
The Juventus midfielder lifted the trophy with his country in 2018, scoring the third goal in their 4-2 final win over Croatia. Pogba has not played for Juventus since rejoining this summer, having torn his meniscus in July pre-season. Juventus gave an update on his condition on Monday without mentioning that he would miss the tournament. The midfielder confirmed via a video posted on Twitter last month that he had undergone successful surgery on a knee injury and added that he is remaining mentally strong despite speculations around his personal life. It also means France manager Didier Deschamps will be without both of the central midfielders who started the World Cup final in Russia 4 years ago, given the recent news that N'Golo Kante will miss the tournament after undergoing surgery. France kick off their tournament in Qatar on November 22 against Australia with barely 3 weeks for the 29-year-old return to fitness. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Association of Football says they will write a letter to FIFA requesting Iran to be banned from the 2022 World Cup in Qatar for a systematic human rights violation. The UAF's executive committee met on Monday where it agreed to make a request to FIFA to consider excluding the Iranian national team from the World Cup, which starts on Sunday, 20th of November. Iran's human rights activist news agency has reported that 284 people, including 45 children, have been killed by security forces in the crackdown on protests. The 2022 World Cup finals kick off on November 20th in Qatar and will be broadcasted live on KBC Channel 1 and all KBC's radio stations. World Cup.
Now, as we prepare for the World Cup, and we're going to be showcasing that global showpiece right here on KBC Channel 1, just a fun fact is that the World Cup has been held for the last every 4 years. That is with the exception of 1942 and 46 when it was not held. So do keep it KBC Channel 1 as we keep you updated on where we are when it comes to matters of World Cup, as well as some fun facts around the World Cup. Just to remind you that World Cup, Iko KBC, choose your team and choose it well. We're going to be having quite some banter here in the next 18 days. Now over to you, Victor, as we sample what we have on the various dailies.
All right, Regina, a quick one. Is Man U playing at the World Cup?
Leave us. Manchester United is not playing as a team for the World Cup, but some players are going to be featuring and playing for their countries in the World Cup. Now, I'm wondering, did you think you're going to get me on that goof? Never ever, never ever. This is a World Cup and it's about countries.
I was wondering, probably that would have been the best position to put Manchester United somewhere.
Well, simply because Arsenal did so well over the weekend, you're going to give us this headache. I'm just happy that Manchester United also won, because I think this would have been quite a long week, especially, you know, with Arsenal there.
But generally,
pulling a first one word on Nottingham Forest was a walk in the park. Well,
yeah, we set Forest on fire. I said it. But what's happening at Manchester United?
Leave us alone. Can you concentrate on the paper?
Is it management or...
What do you have on the front page? I have the front page of the Standard this morning is all about matters of security. Victor, what do you have?
Is good for Manchester
Win
United.
kidogo. Victor is wanting to shine on you here.
You know, I'm wondering. Huh? Do you have a team for the World Cup? We're not talking about the EPL and all that stuff. We're talking about the World Cup. Do you have a team yet?
Today is Wednesday, ladies' night. You support Manchester United, the Red Devils. You are in red. Okay. It's not
this is orange.
It's not.
This is orange.
Director,
it's not
please
red.
Have a split.
It's orange. This
is orange.
Not red.
No, that is red.
No. It's orange.
Okay, what about Doreen?
This is maroon.
Director, please just give us a split.
Hey, colorblind on the highest. This is maroon. Ray's is orange.
Okay.
There's no red here.
Man. Are you all blind?
No, that is the red one.
No, this is maroon. Regina's is orange.
This is orange.
This is deep maroon.
So
There's no red. There's no red. So actually, there's red. One of our operators has red. So you might now just do the dailies. Leave these things alone.
I think if heaven is lined up with colors, I think men will miss the route. Totally.
All right. Okay. So let's take a look at what we have on the front. On the papers here. Let me start with the People Daily. What's on the front page of People Daily? It's actually something that we are going to be talking about in the next segment. CBC Kenyans speak. Parents say that new curriculum is too expensive. Ask state to fully fund all requirements, including hidden costs. Some want it scrapped. Now, the public participation started across the country yesterday, and some of the issues that affect the CBC is the issue of junior secondary school, senior secondary school teachers, and the cost in general. And some of them say that, for example, junior secondary school should be in primary as the learners are too young to go to secondary, and this will also reduce congestion in secondary school. Some school heads have been talking about a lack of preparedness to accommodate the junior learners who will be joining the junior secondary school. Now, secondary schools also say that they should accommodate grade 9 and 10 as younger learners can't be harassed. New classrooms are also not enough. And teachers are saying that more teachers are needed to handle CBC learners. They should also be trained because many are only familiar with 844. This is actually among key issues and concerns that have been raised as part of the CBC rollout. Lack of preparedness from the teachers, and generally, somebody would argue that that is the reality on the ground. Very quickly, over 5 million Kenyans starving. President Ruto says that drought is worst in over 4 decades and pledges to spend 2 billion shillings more in fight against hunger as he is made Kenya Red Cross Society patron. Kenya Airways recovery flight path runs into pilot trouble. That is... briefly, there we have it. And national carrier boss says that change in fortunes has seen planes filling up, triggering pilots' lobbies fresh demands. And now they say that the only option that the pilots do have is now for the industrial action. And for instance, it has been increased, KQ, for instance, has increased flights between Nairobi and London from 7 to 12 per week, with passenger numbers, also known as load factor, growing from 75 to 91%. That means every flight to or from London is nearly full. And according to the Kenya Carrier, I think this is a good indicator now that the country and generally the world at large is still recovering slowly from the ravages of the COVID-19. Okay, my director says that we should take a break. And then when we come back, we are going to go deeper into what we have in the local dailies. Stay with us.
The world's biggest sporting event is here with us. The FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar. KBC Television will air live 28 selected matches, while radio will beam live all the 64 matches. We would like to bring to the attention of the public that KBC is the only station that has exclusive 2022 FIFA World Cup free-to-air FTA broadcast rights for both TV and radio in the Kenya territory, and no other media outlet. Therefore, catch all the FIFA World Cup action live and exclusive on KBC TV and radio. KBC is indeed your true sports partner.
At KBC Channel 1, we put people at the heart of events with our captivating weekly news features. Every day, we are breaking new grounds with informative, entertaining, and inspiring human interest stories. On Mondays, 9 p.m., we have The Cabinets. Tuesday, 9 p.m., we get inside the barracks for military tales. We delve in the world of cinemas and theater each Wednesday night. For the young and industrious, make a date with us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Fridays are dedicated for my culture. On Saturdays, we go back in time for history in perspective. And on Sundays, we get to know the process of how things are done and made. KBC Channel 1 News features a whole lot of wonderful viewing experience.
Welcome back. Okay, quickly onto the papers. State releases 2 billion shillings for more drought response. That happened yesterday in State House when President William Ruto held a meeting with the Kenya Red Cross Board Chair Geoffrey Koriri and Secretary General Asha Mohammed at State House. The President said that 4.5 million people from arid and semi-arid areas, counties, and 856,000 from other regions were facing acute shortage of food and require immediate intervention. Now, out of 5.3 million, Ruto said that 942,000 people were children aged below 5 years, while 135,000 pregnant women and lactating mothers who he said needed urgent treatment for acute malnutrition. Day of intrigues over election of National Assembly's clerk. Now we have a new one, Samuel Njoroge, taking over from the acting clerk, Sarah Kyoko. Njoroge garnered a total of votes of 162 votes after Kenya Kwanza members voted in favor of a motion calling for his appointment, against 94 who voted for Sarah Kyoko. All right, very quickly, CBC, too costly. Again, let's leave that at that. We'll be discussing that in the next few minutes with the Professor Shirono Rotich, who will be joining us via Zoom from United States of America. Of course, she belongs to the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms. 3 hospitals, twins and dead mother. The Senate Health Committee still having their sittings, and one of the hospitals in the spotlight is Mama Lucy Hospital, where there's a lot of pressure pressure is still high, and the nurse saying that there's so much that is happening at Mama Lucy, and now the health committee is tasked with that responsibility to investigate what is happening at Mama Lucy. That is when a widower narrated to senators how his wife suffered before, during and after giving birth. That's something that should not be happening right now. Of course, Muturi was sworn in yesterday to take over Kihara position at JAC. He's now the Attorney General, actually member of the Judicial Service Commission yesterday, which was done by the Supreme Registrar of the Judiciary, Anne Amadi. And finally, in sport, and perhaps this one might not be a good one, because Drogba is now down and out. According to his agent, he's not going to be at the World Cup because of a thigh injury that he suffered. And France is in Group D with Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. And it might not be a good point for Drogba because he's been at the peak during this season. I don't know, Regina, if you look at this and D, if you look at this Group D, France, Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia, which order? Your prediction, Group D. France, Australia, Denmark, Tunisia?
I would go with France, then Tunisia. I'm not too sure about Denmark, though, but my bet is on France, then Tunisia.
Then Tunisia. Doreen? France, Australia, Denmark, Tunisia?
Tunisia.
Tunisia?
Tunisia for...
Okay, to lead Group D.
Yeah.
I think I would go for France, then Denmark, then Tunisia. In that order. But football has a lot of surprises. And we can. I know, Regina, you have a team already, do you?
I thought I said I don't have a team. Why are you pushing me to book a team? Are you placing a bet? Place your bet right now, by the way. Wekele a bet.
It's 17
how
days
How much money are you willing to put on the table? Then I'll tell you my team.
So that you pick a team.
17 to go. 17 days to go. She still has time to do this. So usikwa pressured.
Okay.
Okay. What I'm really waiting for, even as we are doing the countdown to the World Cup, is the euphoria that came with the World Cup in 2018. You know, the music, the song and dance, and you know. Even to some point,
yes.
I remember England really pushing and saying it is coming home. And when I watched that game between France and England, I was like, we can't let this go. You know, you find that most players who are playing in both teams are Africans, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it was like Africa playing against Africa, but for different countries. That was quite an electric match, so to speak. But hey, it is 2022. 4 years later, we're still waiting, for that euphoria to catch on. And even as our viewers are watching, we want to tell them, KBC is willing to walk this journey with you. There's a lot of gifts, a lot of merchandise up for you. So do keep watching KBC Channel 1 and listening to our various radio stations to win a few of our merchandise that are on display and offer. Not even offer, just gifting you for being an avid watch and even audience.
Yeah.
And these 28 matches are going to be coming to you live, and you need to pay nothing. All you need to do is at least to ensure that wherever it is that you are with your home, you have electricity tokens so that your TV can be on. And if you're using data, well, we're going to be streaming this live. So you just have data and ensure you have electricity, and we'll be there to entertain you, isn't it?
Because World Cup iko wapi?
Iko KBC.
Doreen, take it away.
All right, let's come back to the dailies and on the front page of the Daily Nations. Criticisms still continue to strike there to the president, that is William Ruto. This is even as today he actually marks 51 days in office. This is when after elections, and of course after he took oath of office, and still quite a lot of criticism coming on his way, particularly on matters of cost of living, which is still on the high, matters of fuel prices. In fact, this month on the 14th, we expect again review of the prices. Last month, at least, EPA reduced that by 1 shilling for super petrol and 2 for diesel. So wait to see how this month things are going to pan out. Again, issues of taxes also coming to the fore. On cost of living, Kenya last month recorded the highest inflation in more than 30 years, and this was at 9.8%. And this comes on the back of high cost of food and rent. Remember also the president has been key on saying that he's not about to be subsidizing consumption, but production, and this is why you saw that subsidy on fertilizer. But also he's on record saying that Kenyans need to give him at least a year for us to see some of this cost of food prices, particularly also unga, are coming down. Some saying that 1 year is quite a long time, just for Kenyans to give the president for that to go down. The matter of taxes, also new levies on NHIF and NSSF again, and this is actually one of those stories that has also well been cut out on this particular daily. This is after the Court 2 Secretary General, that is Francis Atwoli, has now supported that move by the president to increase contributions of NHIF as well as NSSF. This has been a proposal from the president talking about how important it is not just for Kenyans but also to increase on our pool, particularly also for that which might aid in terms of borrowing, so that then we do not need to borrow externally, but at least we can be able to be self-reliant as a country. So that has gotten a boost from the Court 2 Secretary General, Francis Atwoli there. And also according to NHIF, by having top earners pay more, which again has been one of those proposals by the president whereby top earners are also being looked into to perhaps increase more on that NHIF kitty. And this is particularly also where the Dr. Ruto is pushing for workers earning more than 100,000 a month to pay 1.7% in monthly NHIF. And this is what now NHIF is saying, that this, when top earners pay more, then the scheme will have an additional of 20 billion annually. But we have seen this move really, getting quite the critic there, particularly sharp critics from the opposition, saying that, it really might not be quite right to propose such things as increase of contributions or increase of taxes here and there. This coming at the backdrop of high cost of living, also saying that it's quite important for this to pass before Parliament. You know that Article 210 of the Constitution well stipulates that so much as this is a proposal and it's getting approval from various bodies here and there, we also know that there's place for Parliament in all of this before it's actually effected. But that's also what is coming up in respect to this contribution and the increment of them thereof. And also Dida, one of Africa's largest female tuskers, dies in Savo at 65. This was obviously announced by the KWS, one of Africa's largest elephants, which died at the age of 65. And again, this is in addition of the 200 that KWS had initially announced, and this also comes at the backdrop of the ravaging effects of drought, clearly just showing you that this does not affect Kenyans who live in these 29 counties that have been put in the alert and alarm phases by the Red Cross, but also in terms of wildlife who are really also being hard hit by this effects of drought. And also what you are gathering here is that why this elephant was being regarded or referred to as a tusker. This is just simply because an elephant becomes a tusker when its ivory tusks are so long that they scrap the ground. And this was basically, who Dida was there, died at the age of 65. Before I toss it over to Ray, let's just look at the back page of the Daily Nation. Matters Education taking center stage, of course, a conversation that Victor will be having in some minutes from now, and I'd really want you to stick around for this because it's really quite pertinent discussions there. And this is in respect to the task force. They are just going around the country, 47 counties. All of these counties will be covered, where they are collecting reviews to inform the reforms that will be put in place when it comes to that CBC there. They picked on 10 counties of Migori, Kwale, Busia, Samburu being amongst the 10 counties whereby they first began with the collection of these reviews. And just at a glance of some of those key issues that were raised, remember that they're collecting not just from the stakeholders in these counties, but also from Kenyans at large. Key among those issues include high cost of implementation, inadequate training of teachers, lack of infrastructure, confusion over the transition, and this is again because of grade 6 who are also sitting for their final year exam. And the Ramon question has been with the junior secondary school, where it will be domiciled. Is it in the primary or the secondary level? So this is part of what came out there in terms of those issues that were raised in some of these counties where they've already collected these views. Also high demands on parents, high number of subjects. And again, tomorrow they are set to traverse counties of Mombasa, Makueni, Nyeri, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bungoma, Nyamira, as well as Homa Bay counties. Regina.
Now, the copy of the Standard has, taken quite interest on what is happening when it comes to the former DCI boss, and goes with Kinoti left exposed in shakeup. We have been seeing the DPP versus the DCI and also this shakeup under the new regime. Well, he may be the fallback plan guy, the guy to take the fall for what has been happening in his tenure, now that he has already been replaced as the DCI boss. Now, the number is 24, the number of senior officers affected by the changes that were announced by DCI boss Mohamed Amin. Now, the ground beneath the DCI boss George Kinoti is shifting first, and a section of men he commanded are in custody as investigations into their operations gathers pace. Yesterday, his successor, that is Amin, he dispersed the last of his allies. So he is exposed, so to speak. And if you play chess, you would know that if the bishop is actually exposed, then the queen will fall. Definitely, we'll be watching this particular turn of events. Remember, on the campaign trail, the president continued talking that the security operators should not be used, by the executive. Is this the direction that this administration is taking to just try and ensure that, the security operators somewhat maintain a bit of independence, and that way people get the services that they require from the security apparatus? It all began with even having that the budget now is not going to be controlled by the executive or even the National Treasury, but security operators are going to be controlling their budget. Well, we'll be keeping tabs on that. That's the front page of the Standard that has also further given us a sneak peek into what is happening in the August House. Now, lawmakers begin to fight to rescue CDF. That's been something that has been going on the floor of the House, as well as when it comes to matters of business and investment, is that there's a shortage of dollars. This has been the case even before the August polls. It seems it's tightening there, and now according to a report here captured by this particular daily, it indicates that this creates a situation where, we risk foreign investment in regard to this situation that we find ourselves in. And also talking about national air transport matters, is that now there's a standoff between pilots under CALPA and the national carrier, that is KQ. Now, yesterday we had two functions, one held by the national carrier and chaired by the CEO Kivaluka there, who said that who asked the pilots to just give them time to put things into place, saying that he inherited the national carrier that had historical, debt challenges, and he's yet to sort that out. So he actually asked for time to put this situation in order. On the other hand, is that the latest development is that KQ also went to court and got an injunction against a strike notice that was issued by the pilots that was, to terminate on November 2nd, which is today. Now, this bars the pilots from actually taking that industrial action. We'll be keeping tabs on what is going to be happening on that front. And also now matters of, the impact of the drought situation there. Kenya lost an iconic jumbo. They're one of the latest jumbos there. I've been watching films. Kenyan jumbos have been featured in a couple of films, including Echo. If you haven't watched that documentary, you need to get watching that Echo. And it was in the Amboseli there. And a fun fact about elephants is that they're matriarchal, and Kenya in itself has it's called a database for all elephants, so to speak, and they are arranged in alphabetical order. And if an elephant in the Amboseli trumpets, the various clans or the various families get to know that is a trumpet from family X, Y, Z. Well, there's so much to learn about jumbos, and it's quite sad that this jumbo named Dida succumbed to, the ravages of drought, out of starvation and such. We're going to be keeping tabs on that, including what happened yesterday when it comes to matters of entertainment. Now, those who are into this age bracket, that is a Generation Z, so to speak, know that American rapper Takeoff from the award-winning rap trio Migos was shot dead yesterday in Houston, Texas. That's just but a sneak peek of what has been given precedence in this particular daily. Just to remind you that we have outlined for you the schedule for the World Cup. Now, information we got from France is that midfielder Paul Pogba will miss the World Cup due to an ongoing knee problem. Now we're going to be looking at who is going to be playing where. I know Victor asked me if Manchester United is going to be playing at the World Cup. Well, definitely the team is not going to be playing, but several players from different teams have applied to actually want to represent their countries in this particular showpiece. And now, since we're talking about France, we had asked you, what do you think about the lineup, in that particular group? And this, we're talking about the group that involves none other than Denmark, Tunisia, Australia, and France. Now, the defending champion is France there, and it opens against in Qatar. It's going to be playing among the first games. That is on November 22nd, which is exactly 20 days from today, given that the World Cup is going to be opening up on the 20th, so to speak, with 18 days to go. So come November 2022, there are Denmark, Tunisia are also in Group D, as well as defending champs France and Australia. So France will be without its 2018 World Cup winning midfield and Chelsea N'Golo Kante, who is also out for several months after surgery on a hamstring injury. Are we still betting on France? I don't know. Well, let's wait and see. Time will tell. 18 days to go, and indeed, KBC is a place to be. So save a date. 18 days to go.
All right. So let's take a look at, and finally, this is the last paper, The Star. EACC probes 18 billion shillings Uhuru era energy deal. Reports concludes Turkana wind farm mismanaged and taxpayers paid for blunders. Now, Permanent PS Njoroge, Governor Baraza, among those to be questioned in the 18 billion shillings deal. Of course, the story of Data 65, the Jumbo, the matriarch of Savo Park, also captured here. Hunger forces husbands out of homes as girls trade in some business. The Education Department in Kajiado South Sub-County says that 400 pupils are out of school due to drought, but parents say that most children are home, while Loitoktok in the sub-county is the bedrock of agricultural activities in Kajiado County. All 4 wards have been hit hard by the drought. Very quickly, relatives of abductees want victims released. Over 235 cases of people abducted by cops have been recorded. There's a bit here by the Met. The weatherman says that rains will be here, yes, but only to ease drought slightly. The weatherman now says that the drought will worsen because the rains will be depressed and end early next month in Mandera, Garissa, Marsabit, Wajir, Isiolo, Turkana, and Samburu. And now the Met Department said that Kenyans not to expect much rain between now and January. Not some good news. Of course, the story of Dida there, the matriarch also covered on page 3 of this paper. EAC probes 18 billion shillings Uhuru era energy deal. The paper says that the money was paid to private investor due to delays in connecting the Lake Turkana wind power to the national grid. A parliamentary report has concluded that the wind farm project, the largest in Africa, was poorly managed and that blunders by government entities cost the taxpayers 18 billion Kenya shillings. Aberdare items don't belong to missing Indians driver, according to officials, even as the pieces of bones and belts recovered recovered on October 18th and 19th don't belong to them. The officials said that even the bones are not humans, according to them, dashing hopes of establishing the whereabouts of the three, if any. DNA analysis of the items recovered at the Aberdares National Park and at various scenes is, however, yet to be conducted, and a report made before the investigating file can be forwarded to the Director of Public Prosecutions. And according to police, the preliminary investigation and findings indicate that the three Indians, that is Mohammed Zahir, Sami Kidwar, and their taxi driver, as well as Zulfikar Ahmad Khan, disappeared in the Aberdares, and they're up to date, they're yet to be found. So, according to officials, items don't belong to the missing Indians and the driver. And finally, House pushes for legislation to anchor regional economic blocks. Money sent to the blocks by their partner members and donors have never been audited. And they say that the senators have launched inquiries into the activities of the regional economic blocks as they push for legislation to anchor the entities. The Senate's County Investments and Special Funds Committee has sought information on the administration, legal and financial status of the blocks. Of course, the Lake Region Economic Block was to take place last week, but was postponed to sometimes next month. So that is as far as this is concerned. And that is it. Regina, fuel prices could ease for second month on low. Global crude terms, what do you think? This because of reduced economic activities in China in the wake of COVID fears that has affected demand. Are we supposed to be happy on this?
Happy or sad?
All right. Okay. Her microphone is off. All right. So at this particular point, I think it's now for us to call it a wrap on the news headlines, what we have on the local dailies. Let's take a break. And when we come back, let's talk about the CBC. Let's examine the CBC. We have got Dr. Chirono, who is a professor based at Indiana University and who is also a member of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms. We'll be talking to her shortly after this break. Stay with us.
It's a dangerous venture. Is it really worth the risk?
The longer that they continue to exist, the more danger they can cause. What I want, all I want, all that I've ever wanted is you.
I'm the daughter of Green Hills King, Betsy. I hid it from all of you at Skywall. I'm awfully sorry.
Are you really a woman?
I swear. I have to say, he's done a lot for me.
Auntie, you're blushing.
I'm your auntie. Don't you dare tease me.
Well, I was just wondering if this lantern is as powerful as they say it is.
I wouldn't underestimate it. Right. After I'm done with it, my master will be revived.
Kakamega mpo.
Stesheni uipendayo Ingo FM inakuletea road show ya mwaka katika kaunti ya Kakamega, Ijumaa tarehe 4 na Jumamosi tarehe 5 Novemba. Tarehe 4 Ijumaa tunazuru Mumias, Matungu, Shianda, Navaholo, Malava, kambi ya Mwanza, Lurambi, na tarehe 5 Jumamosi tukutane pale Kakamega, Hayega, Malinya, Bukura, Huisero, Mulwanda, Sabatia, Ekero na Mumias Town. Kutakuwa na vichekesho na burdan tosha. Pia utakutana na kikosi kizima cha watangazaji na waenzi wa Ingo FM. Usikose.
Radio Ingo, ingini ya Mwitala. Kakamega na yefu bwana.
Mfanya kitu wewe.
Sawa, muue kama nataka kumuua. Utapambana na mkono wa sheria na wewe.
Leo maajabu hujawika kama kawaida yako unaponiona karibu na Abel.
Sijabadilika. Hilo naweza kukuhakikishia.
Sijakuja vita jamani.
Na nani yapigana na wewe?
Sitaki kisa cha Lea na Kate katika maisha yangu mimi. Namtaka mwanamke aniondoke katika maisha yangu.
Ndio kina nani hao?
Wako wapi sasa ndio hao?
Zile neema za Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hata waadhibu hao Waislamu, hata waadhibu waumini, hata waadhibu watu wa ummati Muhammad, hata watu wote duniani mpaka sasa hivi ni wako katika ummati Muhammad, ikiwa ndani yao mna watu wataendelea kufanya istighfar, ikiwa ndani yao kuna watu watatubu kwa Allah, wallahi Allah hatawaadhibu.
Biidhnillahi ta'ala tunazungumzia tauba ya kumtubia Allah.
According to a notice in the local dailies by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms chairperson Raphael Munavu says the committee will begin receiving views from the public from Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 to Friday, November 11th, 2022. The session will be conducted from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. On the first day, the committee will conduct the exercise in Kwale, Taita Taveta, Marsabit, Nyandarua, Turkana, Kericho, Busia, Migori, Mandera and Samburu counties. On Thursday, November 3rd, 2022, the committee will collect views in Mombasa, Makueni, Nyeri, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bungoma, Nyamira and Homa Bay counties. The forums will continue on Friday, November 4th, 2022 in Isiolo, Wajir and Laikipia counties. On Monday, November 7th, 2022, residents in Kilifi, Kitui, Kirinyaga, Bomet, Trans Nzoia, Kakamega and Kisii counties will have their opportunity before the committee proceeds to Meru, Garissa and Baringo counties on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. The day after, Munavu and his team will engage relevant education stakeholders in Lamu, Embu, Murang'a, West Pokot, Narok, Nandi and Siaya counties. Members of the public in Tana River, Machakos, Tharaka Nithi, Kiambu, Uasin Gishu, Kajiado, Vihiga, Kisumu, Nairobi and Nakuru counties will share their thoughts with the task force on Friday, November 11th, 2022. Ongoing implementation of the competency-based curriculum will see a double transition of learners to secondary schools in 2023. The Pioneer CBC cohort, currently in grade 6 and class 8 candidates, are expected to sit the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment and the Kenya Certificate of Primary Examination, respectively, between November 28th and November 30th, 2022. This as the academic calendar will return to normalcy in 2023.
Let me have it. And on that note, I have Professor Jeroen Rotich. Professor, good morning.
Morning, how are you doing?
Fantastic. It's finally rained in the city and in Kenya. We are happy.
That is great news. It's 1 a.m. here and it's not raining. It's just a little cold, so we're getting used to that. I'm in Indiana.
Absolutely. Professor, the Presidential Working Party and Education is currently ongoing with the public participation across the country. It must be a lot of work for you, but Kenyans are expecting a positive results at the end of the day.
Yes, it is a lot of work. In fact, personally, I am currently in Indiana and I've been staying up since October the 12th through the 14th when the committee was officially launched. My schedule has been starting at 1 a.m. I wake up at 1 a.m. I sleep for a few hours, wake up at 1 a.m. and join the committee which is around 2 a.m. here until around 10. Then that's when I transition to my regular job here. So yes, we've been burning, we call it burning the midnight oil, because of the passion that we have for this task. So I do want to thank His Excellency for actually including the diaspora, because it's for the first time the diaspora's voices have been heard. So I've been working with the committee. We have, like Dr. Minerva says, our chair, great chair. We've had induction ceremony, we've had assignments, we've had working sessions, we've had committee assignments, and right now the task force, they're in 10 groups, like he said, and they're down in the counties. I'm here trying to get the input. I'm actually working on getting the input from the diaspora, which, this is a community that has always been left behind, but we are working around the clock. My day normally starts at 1 a.m. and it's 1:07 now, so I'm used to this kind of schedule, and I'm extremely committed until we get this done, because we want to ensure that we have a great education in Kenya. We have a program that serves our citizens. We have an education system that prepares our students, our citizens to be global ready citizens, to be independent, to be self-sustainable, and just the 9-year old. So yes, we are working around the clock to ensure we have a WhatsApp group. We are constantly, I know what is going on in the counties. We are constantly in contact. We are sharing information. We are sharing ideas. So this is a great, great group to work with.
Prof, what is now your role basically in the diaspora, even as you undertake this process?
So I am on all committees, like I'm on the university committee, so I'm working with the task force on the university committee. I'm also on the cross-cutting issues across the board. So we have committees. We are looking at the basic education. Under that basic education, we have curriculum and assessment. We have teacher education and management. We have standards, quality and assurance. And then under the tertiary and universities, we have the Tibet subcommittee, and then we have the university subcommittee. So I am on the university subcommittee, given my experience in the university system, where I've worked in the United States for over 23 years as a faculty member, risen through the ranks to full professor, where I'm now an administrator. I'm an associate dean in the School of Public Health in Indiana University. I'm also the current president of the Kenya Scholars and Studies Association, as well as the founder of the Kenya Students in Diaspora. And I serve on so many organizations. I serve on so many Kenyan global organizations. So my role is to bring in the voices of the diaspora. So we have different sessions. We have WhatsApp groups. We're getting ideas. I'm actually getting a lot of ideas, information even from Kenya, because of my global work and the work that I've done in Kenya. So I am not just in the US, I am a Kenyan. I've worked in Kenya. I've done a lot of work in Kenya. Last year and this year I was at the University of Nairobi as a Carnegie Diaspora Fellow, where I took time during the weekends to visit the schools, to listen. I worked with my nieces and nephews on those assignments, and some of them were not easy. I told them I can't do this. It was just, the requirements were just difficult. So yes, I am part and parcel of the Kenyan system. I'm a global citizen. I am very passionate about education in Kenya.
And your area of operation, basically the 42-member team, the task force, which was formed by the president. Allow me to ask you this question. At the end of the day, what are some of the things that you are looking at?
So what we are looking at, we're like, again, I don't want to preempt this because we are collecting information, we are collecting views. So we're looking at things on basic education. Of course, CBC is a priority right now, given that there's this 6th grade that is about to transition. So we're hoping to get information on exactly where is the best place to domicile these 6th graders. So we're hoping to get information on that. We're also hoping to get views, or we're looking for views as to how we can make this system work better or work great. I personally think it's a great system. I've been in programs like that. Maybe the only thing that we're getting is we want to hear the voices from the parents, from the students, from the teachers, from the leaders. So we want to get information. We're getting views so we can advise His Excellency the President, because at the bottom line, we want to make our education system the best. We want students to graduate who can transition to tertiary and university. So we are looking at under the tertiaries, what is working and what is not. In terms of technology, do they have access to technology? How is the technology working? What do they need in terms of the university? We're looking at the curriculum. We're looking at overall of the curriculum. We're looking at funding models. We're looking at quality control, legal and governance issues. We're looking at financing and equity of education. So we're looking at everything. So we're looking at the tertiary universities, and then we're looking at cross-cutting issues. Again, the bottom line is we want to get input from all stakeholders so that when we make these recommendations to His Excellency President William Ruto, Dr. William Ruto, His Excellency, we want to make sure that these are the voices of the stakeholders.
Prof, let me just ask you this question. Is CBC a bad idea?
No, CBC is not a bad idea. If you look at the CBC, the idea is to graduate an engaged and empowered, ethical citizen, which we, on our side, we want to graduate students who are global ready citizens, who have the critical thinking skills, who can go into the workforce. So there's nothing, the curriculum is great. Competency-based curriculum is great. We use it here in different ways. I think the only issue that we're hearing is that the resources, not everybody has equal access to those resources. So that's why we're looking at financing and equity. What is it equitable? Does everybody have, a child in Nairobi, right? And a child in my village. I remember I went there during COVID and I was asking my mom, has this child done their homework? I said, my partner, watch out. Let him leave first. I'm more worried about COVID. Watch out on your homework. So they're like, wachana na hii vitu yao wanauliza. They're like, wanakuja na niambia nichukue selfie. I don't even know what selfie is. So my mama akamwambia mwende kwa Facebook. I said, no, that's not where you get the assignment. So the idea is not, I think what I'm hearing from this side is, again, we in diaspora, we support the system, we have families, we part and parcel of that. We are not, just because we're outside Kenya does not mean we're part of that. And remember, diaspora is all the way outside Kenya, so we're all over the place. And we are very much aware of what is going on. When I was in Kenya in the summer, I went to the girls' schools, I went to Sing'ore, I went to all those schools, Kenya High. I visited those schools and I was listening and I was seeing what was going on. So I think the whole idea is, the questions we're asking ourselves is, are the schools fully resourced?
Yes.
Do they have all the resources that they need? And then the preparation of teachers and administrators, was this well rolled out? Their proper planning and rolling this out. I've been in this system where we are part of the strategic goals. I'm actually a part of the strategic goals for the Indiana University, where I'm on the Global Partnerships Committee. So we sit down, we bring together all the stakeholders. We come across great ideas, but you know what? We ensure that we have enough funding, we have enough resources, and that this curriculum is going to be equitable to everybody who is a consumer curriculum. We also want to make sure that people who are implementing are well prepared. So the question is, were our teachers prepared? How was it rolled out? And do they have enough resources? So those are some of the things that we are hearing. Remember, again, it's not we're hearing, and we are listening very carefully. I am thing, my phone is ringing. I'm getting messages that are putting me into tears as I read those messages from stakeholders, from students saying, this is what I'm going through.
Prof, you've talked about the issue of preparedness in terms of the parents, the teachers, and even the schools. Most of the schools administrators saying that they are not ready in terms of classrooms and other facilities. So, as the working task force, what are some of the recommendations that perhaps you are looking at the end of the day before the CBC is fully rolled out?
Great question, but you know what? I can't fully answer you that question because that is where we're listening now. We will tell you those questions after November. Right now, we're listening from November 1st to November 11th. We have a session with diaspora on the 25th.
Yeah.
We have a meeting. We have a meeting next week. We have another meeting on the 10th, on the 12th. So once we get those ideas, remember we're getting their views as to what is not working and what is working, because they're the consumers. We don't want to push things down their throats. We want to hear what is it that is going to work for them. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to hearing what they think will work for them. And of course, we are looking at, the diversity. We're looking at all over the county. We're looking at Turkana. We're looking at Nairobi. So it's interesting to see what we'll get from that. But definitely we are listening as a committee, and we'll share those views, we'll share their voices, and we will present it.
Yes. Prof, when you talk about the preparedness, a majority of Kenyans will say that there is this interested party, the parents. Some say that children would carry all the assignments from school and back home. So others would appreciate, yes, CBC is fine because it's competency-based. But now, the cost and other facilities, and it should be retained, but all other factors should be retained to the government. Do you think that should be the situation?
You know what? If that is what it's going to take to have a successful education curriculum, especially those who cannot afford. So what other option do they have? I am a very involved parent. I was very involved in my children's lives. And if there are things I couldn't afford, that made me feel miserable. So if they cannot afford, those who can afford, fine. But those who can afford, you're setting up these children for failure. How do you expect them to do work if they don't have the resources? I saw that. I observed that. In fact, what was interesting was I saw parents having WhatsApp groups and they're asking themselves, how do you do this assignment? So it got to a point where parents are actually doing the assignments. Parents are going to the store to buy the stuff that they need. How about that mama in the village in Elgeyo Marakwet, because that's where I come from, who has no idea? Like I said, when I ask them, they're like, wacha watoto wa survive kwanza, wachana na hii vitu yao. We're more worried about COVID and what they'll put in their mouth, because they just didn't even understand what they were asking. I am in kinesiology. Look at swimming. You tell a child to go swimming, that's okay. The ones in Nairobi can go swim, but the ones in the village, what pool are they going to? Yeah. And then the fear is the child is going to graduate thinking that they can swim, and then they're going to jump into a pool. And what do we expect?
Exactly.
So when it comes to that, I've all my life, I'm an educator. I am very passionate about education and giving children, giving students resources, giving them the tools that they need to succeed. Otherwise, if they don't have the tools, then we have problems.
Prof, the whole idea of CBC was mooted way back in President Mwai Kibaki's era when he took power. So we'd imagine that CBC has taken more than 10 years in the pipeline and is coming to be actualized at this particular stage. But now, there is that aspect of policy and the action plan. Where was the point of departure?
That's a very good question you're asking me, and I don't know the answer, because that's now, if it's something that I was part and parcel of, if I was involved from day one, like I said, I've been part of strategic committees, I've been part of strategic programs where we actually plan everything, and we do them in phases. Phase 1, this is what we're going to do. Phase 2, this is what we're going to do. Phase 3. So it's kind of phased out, and at every stage we do assessment and evaluation. We provide the resources and we go back and say, where have we gone wrong? What is worked and now?
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened here, but again, from my world, from my experience, from my career, we are very, very diligent about this. We don't play with children's life. This is their life. This is their life. This is their career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some of the aesthetics missing when you have the action plan here? CBC is in place, but then now we have got the aesthetics, the tools that will make it run efficiently so that both parties, the parents, teachers, and even the students, by large, the government will have to feel some kind of a lightweight in rolling out CBC.
Again, that's where we are. And again, I can't, we're out there in the fields, we're collecting information, but I'm hoping that is why this task force was created, so we can actually go back to the ground, go back to the drawing board and say, where did we go wrong? What can we do to, we have children who are in the system. We can't just drop them out and say, okay, we're going to take you here. It doesn't work that way. What are you going to do to this child's life? We had a good education. We had a good program. We are responsible citizens to ensure that these kids have the best that we can provide. It's unethical for us to put children through that. So therefore, we are going to say, yes, that is why we're all over the county. We're all over the diaspora. We're saying, what is it that we can do? What are your thoughts? What are your views?
Exactly.
And then give us feedback. So I'm not going to say we have that. If we had the answers, we'd have just written a report. But that's why we're going back to the stakeholders. We're talking to leaders, county leaders, we're talking to governors, we're talking to everybody, a consumer, a supporter, every stakeholder. We are not leaving any stone untouched. So we have a team that is extremely passionate. I'm telling you, you should see our group. I love this group. I enjoy it. I just love the energy and the passion that we have. And we thank God. We're really thankful for His Excellency. We're thankful to our great chair, Professor Munavi, who's guiding us, who's guiding through this process, and we are very diligent about this. And I'm not doubt that we'll come up with the committee will come up with, the task force will come up with a great report that will really enhance or reform the Kenyan education system. Remember, we're looking through basic, tertiary, all the way to universities. So this is a huge task.
Absolutely. Prof, some of the views, others are saying that there should be a blend of 844 system. Others are saying that the CBC should be abandoned in entirety. But do you really think it should be so? What do you suggest? A blend of 844 and CBC? Because as it is, the president said that CBC is here to stay.
I agree with you. CBC is here to stay. So in every system, we're going to look at the good and the bad. What are the pros and the cons? So that's what we're going to look at is, what are the pros of the 844 system? Yes, I have actually received that. This morning, I received very long messages from students in Kenya, because I do a lot of work with students. So then I don't only work with students who are in the US, I work with students who are preparing to come to the US. So I'm getting a lot of mixed messages about getting rid of this, retaining this. So we're getting all this. That's why hopefully when we get together, we'll put together that information. But yes, we're seeing those comments coming through. So we will share that with the respective committees, and then we'll sit down and share what we found out.
Yeah. Prof, what is the comparison between the Kenyan system and the American system? I believe Americans, let me just say, embraced their CBC, quote unquote, years and years ago. Is there anything that you can pick from the American system and plant into the Kenyan system?
There are so many things that we can share. That is what we're saying as diaspora. We don't just want to be seen as people who remit funds. We will do that. Lovely. We love to support our loved ones. We will remit our money. We will remit our funds. But also take advantage of our skills. You send us to this country. We have all these skills, we have all this knowledge, we have all these experiences. So based on our experiences, we have an education system that has been great. I have 2 children who have gone through the system. I have everybody who's gone through the system. The key thing was there were a lot of choices. Like my kids went to math and science, competency. Their focus was math and science. Guess what? I had a choice as to where they wanted to go. If they wanted to do finance, they had a choice. If they wanted to do social studies, they had a choice. If they wanted to do the medical career. So what they did was they resourced the respective schools. So they had something called the magnet schools. where if that is a skill that you wanted to develop, guess what? We bust those kids to those programs. We bust them to their programs, and they got everything that they needed. They got all the resources you can think of. They had the books, they had the teachers, they had the materials, they had everything that they needed. So therefore, they were able to develop their talents. And then when they transition into the universities, so we have a system that has choices, we have a system that has options, we have a system that is well resourced. We have people who are trained. And of course, we're always willing to learn. We're not perfect. We're always constantly assessing, constantly reviewing and saying, hey, what have we done? You know, for example, right now, the University of Indiana, we are actually reviewing our strategic goals. We are reviewing and saying, hey, this is our goal, IU 2030. We're looking at it and saying, how far have we come? Where do we need to be in 2030? So we are reviewing. Every 5 years, we go back and review our goals. We go back and do that. And you know what? As a result of that, we are graduating students who are able to transition. I just want to give some examples of the good things that the Kenyan curriculum has done. So if you look at students who are transitioning into the diaspora, so for example, the US.
Yeah.
What Kenya has done very well is their nursing curriculum and their physical therapy curriculum. They have actually embraced the international curriculum. So right now, anybody who's graduating with a nursing degree or a physical therapy, all they need to do is to do the national exam, do the NCLEX, and they can come and practice right here. So that system, they have strategically worked with international organizations to make sure that the students who are graduating can also transition into the international world and they can function. So that is a great idea. But if you look at people like medical school, professors, I can't. I've been in positions where I wanted to hire professors, but I can't. You know what? Because there are some institutions where they do not do coursework. You know, medical doctors from Kenya cannot practice in Kenya. Some lawyers cannot practice in Kenya.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that we need to look at, the quality of our programs. We need to look at the credibility of our programs, and we need to internationalize our programs. So yes, we're here as diaspora. Like I said, I'm the president of the Kenya Scholars and Studies Association. We have many scholars and students who can help Kenya.
Yeah.
If you're willing to accommodate us. The problem is they're not always willing to. They just want our money, but they don't want our skills and talents. And then guess what? We'll take them outside. We'll take them to other places. I've done work in Gambia, I've done work in Ghana, I've done work in Turkey. I'm going to Turkey. So we've done work elsewhere where they appreciate our skills. So again, there's so much that diaspora across the board can offer to our country.
Absolutely. Doc, I want to believe that you went through the 844 system, right?
No. No.
Okay.
I was in the no, I expected none.
Okay,
No.
but now what is the area of the difference between 844 and the CBC? That gap that is missing, that probably the task force will have to mend, so that at the end of the day we don't drop 844 in its entirety and pick the CBC. What are some of the things that we can pick from 844 and transfer to the CBC and make it a blend?
I think the 844 system was, they focused on competency skills. It was a great curriculum. It was just that it was honestly, I don't know why they changed from the 844, because the 844 system is what we have in the United States. Actually, that's the same system that we
really
have. We have the 844 system here. That is our education system. And it worked well. I guess they just wanted to give them more hands-on competency, which is great. Like I said, it's a great idea. There's nothing wrong with that competency. So what I think is they could transfer some of the ideas that they had in the 844. And also, really, the only thing with the CBC is just really the resources and the training, and then making sure that it's equitable resources.
Yeah.
So I think there's a balance that, again, we can look through that. There's going to be a balance. And actually, like I said, we're getting that information, really striking a balance and saying what worked here. Because in some cases, there are things that did not work, right? I'm aware of that. I'm sure there are things that did not work. Right. So looking at those and saying, like, for example, when they took our Form 6 program, I think it was a great program because the 2 years really gave us time to grow.
Yeah.
That's like, I didn't go through that one.
Absolutely.
Because I enjoyed that 2 years, that separation, that it really gave me time to think through myself and to think through who I was and to kind of design my career pathway.
Do you really think that Kenya was ready for the rollout of the CBC?
From what we are hearing, what we are hearing and what I saw and what I observed when I was in Kenya in 2021 and 2022, I don't think so. I went to the classrooms, I saw them constructing. Teachers didn't even have the money. Their teachers were struggling. They didn't have the money to finish that one classroom. So for example, you have all these kids graduating from primary school, right?
Yes.
So many primary schools have one classroom. What I observed was one classroom. How in the world are we going to fit all of them in one classroom? So I think I don't really know what happened down the road. It was a good idea, but I don't think it was well rolled out, or it was not thought out. It was an afterthought, or it was, it was more of a reaction versus being proactive. Because if they knew that this was coming, why didn't they prepare all those classrooms? But then you're going to end up in 2023 with so many kids who are going to the high school, but they have no domes, they have no classrooms. Surely, what is going to happen? So that, to me, again, like I said, I'm speaking as a consumer, I'm not giving my views, but I'm just speaking as a consumer, having those kids, seeing my nieces and my nephews, and just trying to imagine, oh my goodness, they're going to high school, how are they going to function?
I'm reminded that some of the parents who gave their concern said that some of the students were too young to join the junior secondary school because they wanted, some said that they really needed more time for them to mature in the primary schools. But then the CBC is here and the president is ready and waiting for the report. But allow me to ask you this question. What if, and how long do you really think it's going to take after the report for the whole of CBC to take effect and to be stamped in our Kenyan system?
That's a very good question that I really have no answer. If you ask me about the US, I could probably tell you. Because we're very clear, we're very strategic. We know that we have a task force that we need to finish in 2 months, and that is very clear and it's in stone and writing. I don't know, because what's going to happen is there are a lot of factors that can come into play. We need the resources, the funding, the training, just the whole policies and everything, the training. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but I have a feeling, I know that with His Excellency, our President, he is ready to roll this and he's very committed to doing this. So I have no doubt that he's going to do it in the soonest time or as soon as he's able to do that. So again, we trust his leadership, him and his vice president, we trust their leadership. But the most important thing is we need to make sure that these kids are in a better system, or the environment.
Absolutely.
Like I said, the environment.
Yes. Yes, Professor, the 42-member team led by the good Professor Munavu himself is having their public participation across the country, and perhaps this is giving the whole of this system some upper hand, because some would argue that the stakeholders were not involved in this process. Do you really think that is going to change anything?
I think it will change. I think it will change, because if they were not involved, then we're involving them now. The team, like I said, we share updates. We're in different groups that we get updates on what is going on every day. They're doing an amazing job. Teams 1 to team 10, in fact, we're sharing photos. They're doing great work. So I think it is going to make a difference. And the sense I'm getting, even here in diaspora, is that, they're actually asking us. We matter. So the fact that we are hearing their voices, we're listening to them, the members are going to them, they're taking their time to go down to the ground. So I think it matters and it will make a difference.
Some of the teachers actually who also gave the opinion said that they were ill prepared, there were no structures, there were no infrastructure, they didn't have enough resources and even the manpower to handle CBC. But moving forward, do you really think now it will also have to cascade to the teachers training institutions, the universities, the technical institutions to prepare the teachers pretty well for the rollout?
Totally. It's going to take an overall. That's why we're looking at everything across the board. And actually, you're correct. Like I said, I've visited schools. I was in KU. We have our WhatsApp group for the class of 1994 from Kenyatta University. We have our WhatsApp group from the Kenya High students of 1989. We have a teachers. So I'm in so many WhatsApp groups, and they actually put me, as soon as they saw me on the committee, they put me on all these WhatsApp groups, and they're like, please let me know if you need me to come and talk on TV, if you need me to come and share this. So yes, they have shared the same concerns. In fact, some of my colleagues have said the preparations, I was trained as a teacher at Kenyatta University. So they said all the skills that we learned, we can't even use them. We want to come back. We want to teach. We want to teach the way we were taught. So yes, it is going to require an overall. It's going to require some modifications. But again, based on what we get, we have to be prepared. If we're keeping this system, then we have to prepare everybody. We have to prepare the administrators. We have to resource them. We have to prepare the teachers. We have to prepare some way the parents too. You know, as a parents, we had parent meetings. We had those, involve them every step of the way, because for a child to be successful, it takes a village, and we are the village.
Yeah, we are the village.
We are the
Okay,
yes,
allow me to ask you this simple question. From your village, how would you explain CBC to that old beautiful lady in the village who is struggling with the assignment each and every day? What would you tell her what CBC is all about? Because some of them don't understand.
You want me to tell them in Kalenjin?
Oh yes, go ahead.
No, I do that every day I do a program on Saturday, every Sunday morning on FM, so I already told them. But I think it's a great program. It actually prepares students with skills, with life skills. With life skills that they can use beyond and above after they graduate. And these are skills that they do not, that will not make them employable. These are skills that will make them employers.
Yeah.
These are skills that would really, like I said, these are life skills that I wish I had those skills myself. I didn't have those skills. I had to learn those later on in life. But it's a great idea. It's just that it's not rolled out right. So tell them, whatever it is, it may be hard, but we're working on that. But the whole idea is they have the good interest, they have good intentions. It may be difficult, but the intentions were good. The intentions were good to prepare your children to be citizens. Skills, that life skills, and retool them with skills that will lifelong learning.
Prof, it's 1 a.m. and I know you need to get some sleep before. I'm told you're traveling to Turkey?
Yes, I'm actually going to Turkey for an engagement tomorrow morning.
All right. You need to get some
already.
Okay, yeah, tomorrow morning. All right, you need to catch some sleep before you travel. But now your closing remarks, even as we undertake this process. Of course, the professor is also going around the country with his team here in 254 to get the views of parents and other stakeholders. Your closing remarks, Professor.
Thank you. And I'm also reading my comments from all our WhatsApp groups that we're getting. So I'm collecting information as we move. So I do want to thank His Excellency President Dr. William Ruto and his deputy for really looking at this education system, for their commitment to reforming the education system in Kenya. I do want to thank our leadership, that is the task force, the Presidential Working Party on Educational Reforms, the greatest team I've come across. Great people, great passionate people, and great professionals. And our wonderful chair, Professor Munavi. I want to thank everybody, and I want to assure our Kenyans that we love our children. We love your children. We love Kenya. We love our education system. So you know what? We will do our very best we will give our very best. For example, in my case, I've actually recruited. There's a session on funding and financing and fund financing university education. I've actually reached out to some of the senior-most officers, financial officers in our University of Indiana, and they will be meeting with the group, with the university team as soon as they get back from the community. So we are doing everything. We're sacrificing. I'm not getting a lot of sleep because I love education. We love our children. We love Kenya, and we want to support our leaders. So thank you so much, and thank you for even giving me this opportunity to just support our team and to say, yes, we are here. And remember the diaspora, don't forget us. It's not just about money. We are here. We love Kenya, even if we are not there, but we love Kenya and we always...
We love you too, Prof.
I mean,
we love you too.
We love you, come visit us.
we love you too, and thank you so much for keeping the spirit of Kenya alive. Even in the United States, you are doing an amazing job, and we hope that at the end of the day, whatever you're doing in the States is going to change the whole education landscape as far as the CBC is concerned. So I'll let you go and have some sleep.
Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
Absolutely. Thank you. That is Professor Rotich Cherono, who is now joining us all the way from United States of America, talking to us matters CBC and how the whole curriculum and the public participation is going to happen in the diaspora. All right. We all went to school. That's why we are here. All right, let's take a break right now. Doreen Arange is up next with the next segment. What is she going to be discussing? Stick around for that. My name is Victor Lowe. Have a good morning.
Ni nini mbaya na nyinyi? Kwa nini mnanitafuta? Mimi tutakosana na nyinyi, sitakagi hiyo mchezo. Kwani mko wapi? Mnafanya nini hapo? Ati muna watch World Cup? Ngojea kidogo. Hata sitaki kukasirika tena. Jamani, mafansi wangu, hamjambo. Mimi ni Mama Kayaiwa Vitimbi. Ningependa tu kuwaelezea kwamba KBC Channel 1 peke yake ndio itaonyesha World Cup. Yangu ni kuambia watazamaji wote msikose kuwatch World Cup katika KBC Channel 1. Asanteni sana na kwaherini. Basi endeleeni kuangalia. Yes.
Wallahi zile neema za Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hatawaadhibu hao Waislamu, hatawaadhibu waumini, hatawaadhibu watu wa ummati Muhammad. Hata watu wote duniani mpaka sasa hivi ni wako katika ummati Muhammad, ikiwa ndani yao mna watu wataendelea kufanya istighfar, ikiwa ndani yao kuna watu watatubu kwa Allah, wallahi Allah hatawaadhibu.
Biidhnillahi ta'ala tunazungumzia tauba ya kumtubia.
Griezmann with the corner, kicking him, Tite! Arriving on the near post! There's the breakthrough! It's Samuel Tite for France! And France now can sniff the World Cup final. Hernandez. Lovely flick, Matuidi. Oh, look at this from France, it's Giroud! They managed to block it. Courtois with difficulty. But France there played some sublime football. That was mesmerising. Tolisso! Another save from Courtois. And it is over. Allez les Bleus! All the way to the World Cup final. Brave Belgium eliminated.
Welcome back, and from that cogent discussion there with Victor on matters CBC and the different implementation process therein, we now turn our focus to something a bit different, but still of concern and of interest to us in our country. That is looking at the drought situation, intertwining it with climate change, and what forms center of our conversation is looking at land restoration to mitigate climate change. This is what my guest is set to unpack for us in the next 40 minutes. That is Jacqueline Kemboi, who is Landscape Restoration Coordinator at Just Dig It Foundation Kenya. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me in the studio.
Yeah, let me tell you, I just had to pause a bit when I was doing Just Dig It. Lest again I say Just Digging It. Anyway.
Yeah, so yeah, it's Just Dig It, yeah.
It's Just Dig It.
Yep.
Let's just start from that particular point, Jackie. Let's understand what Just Dig It is all about and what exactly it does.
Yeah, so Just Dig It is a Dutch NGO foundation whereby we do landscape restoration on large scale. And our main focus is on the arid and semi-arid areas. And with this landscape restoration intervention, we promote the use of simple, cheap and affordable technologies where people can just, by knowing them, they can adopt and use them so that they can reverse the impacts of climate change in their area, and also create a microclimate in their area and have, pasture, for example, for their livestock, forage for their livestock, and also, food for their families.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this is a Dutch company. Of course, it has roots in Kenya.
Yeah.
Talk to me about when this was established in Kenya and what has that progress been like?
Yeah, so Just Dig It has been in Kenya since 2015, where we've been having active projects in Kajiado, and now we have an office in Karen. So with now having an office in Nairobi, we are able to monitor and, implement more and more interventions in the country. So as of now, we have, as I said, that we started in 2015. So we have projects in Kajiado, and we are focusing in the Chulu area, the Amboseli area, and the Magadi area. And our main aim is to, regenerate, bring back vegetation on degraded landscapes so that the Maasai communities can be able to get pasture for their livestock and be able to, adapt to the effects of the drought and climate change.
Earlier on, you also talked about ASAL areas, and this is a term that you've had over time, particularly from the Red Cross.
Yes.
And one may just be wondering, when you talk about ASAL communities or ASAL areas, first of all, what does this abbreviation mean, and which kind of communities or places are this?
Yeah, so ASAL means arid and semi-arid areas.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and these, in our country, for example, over 89% of our country is ASAL. It is arid and semi-arid.
89%?
Over 89%. So that means these areas are characterized by low and unreliable rainfall. They are areas that are not good for agriculture, like farming or crop production, but they are good for extensive livestock production. So basically that is what, the ASAL or arid and semi-arid lands means.
All right. Yeah. Yes, and just as I mentioned, we're talking to Jacqueline Kemboi, Landscape Restoration Coordinator, Just Dig It Foundation Kenya. Our conversation centered on matters climate change, trying to look at some of those ways that we can use to mitigate the adverse effects of climate change. She'll be talking to us about the measures we can employ, and of course, you fully know well that the adverse effects of climate change is what has brought us to the kind of position that we are in as a country, and not just as Kenya, but we are also talking about the Horn of Africa. These are countries that have really been affected by the adverse effects of drought. Just yesterday, the president committed 2 billion more in addition to 3.2 to salvage this situation. So these are some of those issues that we'll be conversing with my guest. And just before we are fixing that, we are trying to understand more about these ASAL areas. And you talked about 89%. So one would think this big percentage of our country is actually ASAL, the arid and semi-arid land areas?
Yeah, sure. So when you look at like 10 or 20 years back, we used to say 80% of our land is arid and semi-arid. But now, because of the effects of climate change, more and more areas are becoming, they are being impacted by drought. More and more species are being lost. More and more areas are becoming bare. So the moment you have bare areas, the areas that cannot regenerate by itself, then you can consider that area a semi-arid area, because now they are now receiving less rainfall. The trees or the grass species that are there cannot, regenerate the way they used to be before. So as time goes by, as these effects of climate change, ravage, we are getting more and more areas becoming, those now arid and semi-arid areas. Like now they are receiving now more rainfall. They are now, being impacted more by drought. Yeah? Then you see also the soil fertility, for example, because of, the effects of soil being carried away by, floods, by rains. Most water is lost through runoff. The soil fertility is also lost. So you find even the farmers by themselves, when the farmers who are doing, crop production, because of the loss of soil fertility, you cannot produce anything in that area. Then how will you consider that area to be?
Okay.
Yeah. If it is not producing, it's like, when you have the high potential areas, which now it's about 11%, they receive more rainfall all the time.
That's quite a low number.
It's a low number. And now that's why we need to really focus on these 89%, because now the number is increasing, the percentage is increasing. So in the next 10 or 20 years, where are we going to be if we do not do anything? Yeah.
I mean, that's why we have you here. We really need to find solutions.
Yeah, sure.
And I can already read the passion in your voice as you talk about this. But also, talk to me about the extent of land degradation in these ASAL areas, because it looks like actually in this conversation we really wrap ourselves around these areas, because 89% is really quite a huge percentage. Thinking about the entire country, and this is the kind of percentage you're talking about. So what is the extent of degradation in these areas?
The extent is huge, and I know millions and millions of hectares have been degraded, and they continuously get degraded on a daily basis. When you look at our counties right now, we are talking of about over 25 counties being 29 counties being ASAL. When we were promulgating our new constitution in 2010, when devolution came in, we were talking of 23 ASAL counties in Kenya. Now it's just like 10 years down the line, we have 29 ASAL counties.
And actually these 6 have just been added recently. Because of this drought.
It's because now they cannot produce food. Their soils, maybe they are degraded. They receive low rainfall year in, year out. So people also need to be aware that this is happening. We need to now change. Can we have also diversity of crops that we are growing? Can we look at species that can withstand this can use less water, species that can withstand now the current climate that we are at the moment. So if we are able to diversify and use species that are well adapted now to the current situation that we are having, then we can, reverse it and even have food within our reach. But if people continue with the norm that we've been having, like just growing potatoes every day and maize every day, and the rains are going down and down each and every day, why can't we now move to, crops that can withstand drought, like sorghum, millet, for example? So it depends now with an area, like which area are you, what crops can be grown apart from now, if it is maize, apart from maize, what can we diversify so that we do not depend, alternative, so that we don't depend on maize alone. If maize fail, then we have something else that can help us in terms of getting food.
I hear you. And we'll come to that diversification of crops momentarily. But before we get there, let me come back to the organization. Talk to me about what exactly you do in terms of this mitigative measures, because you've touched on a good number of issues here and there that we could employ. But what are you doing as Just Dig It?
So as Just Dig It, we are implementing simple technologies of water harvesting. So for example, we have something we call soil bands. Other people call them earth smiles. This is just a simple technology where you just need a djembe or a spade. Just dig a small area, and then you scoop the soil and create an embankment that creates in a semicircular manner, in such a way that it faces the direction of the flow of runoff water, so that when it rains, the water can be captured by these soil bands. And inside the soil bands, we plant grass species. So when you plant grass species that are indigenous and are well adapted to that climate, to that area, with that little water that the band will capture, the grasses will germinate and they will establish, and you can have a regreened area within a short period of time. So that is one. Secondly is we have something we call farmer-managed natural regeneration. So farmer-managed natural regeneration is just regenerating trees from the existing tree stumps that people maybe cut, and when people cut and do charcoal production, or just cut the trees and do them for fencing. So with this tree stump, because they have already established roots, there are some copicing stems that come from the sides of the main stem. With that one, you can maintain two or three stems that can grow and become a huge tree. So you can have a tree in an area within a short time by just protecting that tree stump that is coppicing. So
that means you don't have to start from scratch.
You don't have to start from scratch.
Okay.
And also there's something called assisted natural regeneration. That is just from the seeds that are germinating. So when a seed germinates, for example, in an area, and talk of ourselves because that is the area that I have experience in and I've worked for a long time in those areas. You have seeds that germinate from just, they germinate naturally. When they germinate, that means they're already adapted to that environment. They're adapted to that climate. So if you can protect that tree that is germinating, in your area, just spot some trees that are germinating. Protect them from being eaten by goats or any other livestock. That tree can grow.
How do you do that? When you're living with all these things together, you have the animals there, the trees are there, you even have children, for instance. How do you protect them then?
So you have indigenous, there are a lot of indigenous knowledge in our communities.
Okay.
So some people will just do a fence, around it, just protect that tree from, being grazed by livestock. Some people will just educate their children that, please, that tree is being monitored. We are protecting it. So please do not cut it. So, and in most cases, we always mark it. We mark it with a piece of cloth that even when you see it, and we also create awareness within the community that when you see the tree that is marked red or green, please do not touch it. It is under regeneration. We are bringing back trees in our community, and please do not touch it. And if you want to use it, you can prune it. So with that tree, you can just continue pruning it. And the moment you prune a tree, it grows very fast. And with those prunings, you can either use it to, as a fence, for example, and even to enclose that tree seedling that you are protecting. You can use it as firewood. So people will not be moving for long distance to get firewood if you have trees that you are pruning each and every time. Yeah, so that will become an advantage because now you do not need to use a lot of resources to monitor it or to protect it or to conserve it.
It's a question of understanding, knowledge.
Yes, it is knowledge. People now need to know that there's these technologies, there's this knowledge that you can use so that you can regreen an area or regenerate trees within your community within a short time. And then another intervention, which is also simple, is the grass seed banks. Grass seed banks are just simple, small farms where you plow and fence it. And we are mostly implementing it with the Maasai women. And in these areas, these women groups, they plant this grass, and when this grass mature, because I've said they are well adapted to that environment.
There's also the role of women in this mitigation.
Yes, there's role of women in this mitigation. So with these grasses, because they just need little rains. With little rains, they can sprout and they can grow to maturity. They can harvest grass seeds from it and they can sell. And by that, you can increase the income. Women can get an income from it, but at the same time, you are restoring an area. So those are just the simple technologies that we are using. But there's one key thing that you need to put into consideration.
Okay.
Even though you have these interventions in place, one key important thing is management. Grazing management must be put in place for sustainability. Otherwise, even if you just put all the resources, do it, and then you just leave it, you go home and say, I've done it. Livestock will come, wildlife will come, and they will eat it, and we'll go back to where we were before. So grazing management or management in general is very important for sustainability.
All right, I hear you. Jackie, I want us to take a very quick breather, but before we get to do that, I also want us to be thinking about COP27 is coming in terms of climate change. President talked about 5 billion trees by 2027, 10 by 32. How can we do that? And also increase of funds in the Ministry of Environment. How do we manage that? So even as you marinate on that one, we take a very quick breather. We recoil with plenty more of this conversation. Stay with us.
Kanye was still a billionaire after he separated with Kim Kardashian. But when he separated with Adidas,
now
is when he became
he lost the
a billionaire.
No. What do you mean?
So the thing is, there is more money in shoes than there is in women.
No. We are not going to be looking at things like that.
I think you should say the ex-billionaire. The titles never shed. Even when you decay, you say
the late, you know. So the billionaire is the ex-billionaire. I think that would be fair enough for Kanye West, right?
Exactly.
Before I think of FIFA giving us more slots so that Kenya can be included, we should go the Malkia way. The ladies did the basketing and men, look at that. They went and hammered everyone.
Tumesupport hawa watu miaka ngapi? Tumesupport Harambee Stars miaka ngapi?
No, I know.
I have a business proposal for you.
Which is?
I want to be your campaign manager.
You want to be what?
Campaign manager.
You messed me in my dream. You want to mess me again? Stupid. Julie, do you ever go for a day without mentioning food?
Omera, food is life, bwana.
I thought it was water.
That's true. Water is life. Then I dare you to survive on water for the next 7 days.
Julie, let me ask you, how many kilograms are you?
I weigh enough to carry myself around, and I am not complaining.
Safe to say you mean
I am pretty sure that means something totally different.
Welcome back to the program. You're still on Good Morning Kenya, holding court with my guest, that is Jacqueline Kemboing, Landscape Restoration Coordinator at Just Dig It Foundation Kenya. Of course, talking about matters of climate change, looking at how we can mitigate the issues and the adverse effects of climate change that intertwined with the drought, ravaging drought in our country. Now, Jackie, before we took that break, you're talking to us about some of those measures that you're doing as an organization, and you strongly touched on planting of trees in one way or the other. The president has also committed to this: 5 billion trees by 2027, 10 billion by 2032, 15 billion again in the next 5 years, and this continues. So then one would ask, we have been sort of like planting trees over time. Why are we thinking about this at this point in time? What have we not been doing correctly that the president is now committing to such, one would think, kind of a huge project, so to speak?
Yeah, so thank you. I think that is a great initiative, planting trees. But one thing we need to put in mind is the sustainability of those trees, so that we do not plant trees and then at the end of the day, we have all the trees dying. So that is one thing we need to put in place. And then secondly, we need to look at what species are we planting. Species are site-specific, and species vary with, water use efficiency. So there are species that are good for dry lands. For example, because we are talking of arsals, because now if 89% of our country is arsals, then let's focus on the arsals.
Exactly.
So we are planting trees in these areas, for example. What kind of trees are we planting? What are the use? Because you also have to look at the use in the community for the people to adopt it.
Let me get this, and also for the benefit of our viewers. When you talk about planting trees, it's not just blanket. We are planting trees. Because you've constantly mentioned something about specificity in respect to area. Okay.
So now that is key. If you have a species that is specific to that area, it can withstand any environmental challenge.
All right.
And if you
we need to start from there.
We need to start from there. Have the right species for the right place.
Okay.
That is one. Secondly, who is going to plant these trees? It is the people on the local people who are planting the trees, or you yourself. Why are you planting that tree? What is it? What benefit does it have to you? If for me it doesn't have any benefit, I will not even have time for it. I will be looking for maybe food to try to, plant my crops which can help me feed my family. But if that tree has importance to me, I will manage it and I will take care of it. So the tree has to be site-specific, but it also has to have an importance to that specific community or to those specific people, especially for the pastoral communities, for example. If you want them to plant trees in an area, that tree has to be a fodder for livestock, because they are livestock keeping people.
Yes.
It has to provide fodder for livestock. It has also to be maybe fruits for the family, because to improve nutrition in the family. So it should have those, importance to the people, and also the locals should also understand that tree, the importance of that tree.
So it means that we are not just thinking about climate change holistically as to why we are planting trees to mitigate the adverse effects of that, but also we're looking at the former. If it's an area, for example, in Kajiado, an area in Amboseli, somewhere in Tiati, for example, you need to be thinking which trees would do well in Tiati, which trees would do well in Samburu. How would people of Samburu benefit in terms of food production for themselves and their livestock as we curb?
Yes, and also you have to put in mind that you have to look at check and balances.
Right.
Is it easy to plant a tree, or is it easy to regenerate a tree?
Okay.
So which one is cheap, which one can work? So you need to have local people also contributing to that, not just you going to pump information or, here are trees, please plant. You also have to get information from the community, because those are the people who are, going to be with those trees for the rest of their lives, for example. So if regenerating a tree is easy in that area, or, assisting the germinating seedlings in that area to grow, then we can go for that. In areas where we can plant trees, we have, like, for example, the private farms where people have, they can easily plant their trees and protect, then let's plant trees in that area. So there's a lot of things that we need to incorporate even before we can say that, now you, as Doreen, plant this tree, plant this tree.
I get you. And I want to believe that relevant stakeholders also listening to this, because again, the president also pledged and committed to increasing the fund in the Ministry of Environment for this purpose of planting trees. And a good number of Kenyans were asking, so then how do we monitor that? In the event that actually you're given this particular fund and you say that rains didn't come, so then how do you say, trees didn't grow? But then based on what you're telling us, that identifying is actually key, because whether or not rains come, for example, at least in one or the other, you have solved with the situation.
Sure.
Again, talk to us about what you're doing also at Just Dig It in respect to matters of water conservation, because it's also one of those very key areas.
So in Magadi, for example, I can just use the examples that we are implementing. In Magadi, we are desilting water pans with the communities in Olkiramatian and Shompole Conservancy. If in rangeland, for example, if you want to do rangeland rehabilitation, these are areas where we are rehabilitating for the purpose of livestock production and for the communities in that area. When you look at pasture or vegetation, you have also to look at water. How will these people get water? And when you are doing the water interventions, you also have to consider the issues of grazing management, so that animals will not be passing an area which you do not want them to pass for a certain period of time to access water. So you have to make sure that the water is put in strategic places where the pastoral communities can get. And when you involve these people, they can easily tell you that this area, it has been, when it rains, you get a lot of water ponding in this area. Why can't we, use just some little resources to expand it? And they're always willing to, even to contribute their effort and, their labor to do it, as long as you just, support them, know their needs. Maybe they need food, they need, maybe cash. You can just support them, and they can do, the desilting of those water pans. And I also, it's just a pledge whereby, we have the county governments, for example, in these areas. It is always important that we can, in every even financial year, let's just do something major for these communities, for example, in terms of water. If we can do two water pans, huge in a certain area, it's very beneficial to those communities.
All right. Now, even as you talk about the issue of water, the weatherman has talked about how, at least for some few days, we shall experience some bit of rainfall, but not to the much expectancy. And you're already seeing that some areas here and there already, floods coming in. And then one would wonder, we've not experienced rainfall in a long while. So now we are at least getting benefits of it shortly. What can we do in terms of sensitization for people to understand that they need to be harvesting this water, at least to mitigate the effects that may come later when we don't have rainfall at all?
So in Just Dig It, we really do a lot of communication. And communication is key in enabling people to, get to know the information, or, sensitizing them, creating awareness among the communities. So if we can create awareness, tell people that you can do this intervention to harvest water, you can do this, then people are willing to do it. For example, let me just take you back to the soil bans, which we are implementing. We have thousands and thousands of them. So if one ban can hold, a certain amount of water, you have 2, you have 10, you have 100. You can imagine how much water will you harvest in that area, how much water will infiltrate into the soil and will not be lost through runoff, and how much water will not go into the streams to cause floods. So if people get to know these interventions, if people get to know that you can harvest, water in this certain manner, by not using a lot of money, or you do not need machineries, for example, because now that is an issue. If you think, if communities are thinking about machineries and they cannot afford it, but if you can give them knowledge or information that instead of thinking of machineries, you can use these simple technologies to harvest water, then communities will adopt it, and you can have water within within a short or a long rain season. Another thing, for example, is the check dams, and we are doing that in Magadi. For example, you find there's a stream, and most of the time water is ponding. If we can do those check dams in that area, the water can remain in that area for some certain period of time and assist the communities and livestock. And those are just simple, like if check dam is just getting stones and piling them to ensure that the water remain there for some time, so that the water does not flow with force, but it can just flow gently, and some can remain for the pastoral communities to use it. So with those simple technologies, with that information, if you can share that information with the communities through media, through TVs, through SMS, through movie road shows, storytelling, people can get to to embrace these technologies.
Exactly. And again, just as I said, that is why we have you here as an expert to talk to us about this. But also there's something that I came across, and I'd want you to also address it. This is human activities. For instance, you're talking about burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas, and you're seeing particularly countries in East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania also, this is one of those things that they really sort of, I should say, embrace, and it's really causing negative effects. In fact, when we talk about climate change, we really link it so much to this as well, burning of this fossil fuels like the coal, oil and gas. What can we use as an alternative? Much as we talk about Africa only emitting 5% of this gas emissions, but what can we do to reduce on that?
Thank you very much. I think there are several ways, and I have seen organizations coming up with some energy saving, for example, stoves, where people can use little firewood to cook, for example, and it's just creating awareness. People can they can easily adopt it, but when they do not know the know-how, it becomes an issue. And then now when you have these the issues of fossil fuel, for example, these huge countries producing fossil fuel and having great impacts on in our environment, for example, we need to come up with those solutions, like how can we mitigate this? How can we give an incentives to this community so that they can even plant more trees, so that we can mitigate those effects of the fossil fuel.
I hear you. Now that you touched on the planting of trees again, looks like this is one of your strong areas, your forte, I shall say. Let me also pick your mind on this particular issue, the Shamba system. I know it has died down a bit, but it was one of those things that really caused quite the conversation there. The time the Deputy President talked about this. And this has been a system that is not a new system, actually. It has been there since time immemorial. I think, even since we got independence, but different regimes bringing it, removing, bringing it, removing. It was finally removed during the reign of Kibaki, and we've been that way up until when it was just mentioned by the Deputy President. But then one would argue that it's kind of a good system, kind of a bad system, depending on where you want to sit. Also looking at the effects of drought, you could benefit in terms of food, and also benefit in terms of growing trees to curb effects of climate change. What would you say in respect to this, and also as you addressed that, in terms of policies, what can we do?
So with this issue of Shamba system, it is very interesting because it depends on where you sit, and it can be good or bad. But now it depends on the policies and the regulations that are there. If we have really good policies and regulations that are enforced, I think the issue is enforcement, because we can have rules, we can have regulations, we can have policies, but if it is not enforced in the right manner, then it is not a good system. Then it becomes a good system. For example, the Shamba system, if we can, allow the local people to access the forest to plant crops, how sure are you that they will not get into the forest and cut the trees and, you know, burn charcoal, for example. How will you regulate that? I think that is the most important thing that we need to also put in mind, that if we are allowing community, for example, to do these plant crops, and they can, you know, after 2 years, definitely the trees will chase them away. But now, how are you sure are you that they will not touch the forest? You can have rangers on site, for example. Yes. You can have rangers there manning the site. But we are all humans. How sure are you that I will not give you as a ranger like 500 shillings to allow me to, you know? So those are the things we need to look into before we can, you know, allow a certain system, you know, to take place. So I think the government also needs to, you know, regulate and ensure that we have enforcement. If people know that there are real penalties, if you go against the rules that are there, and there are huge penalties on that, and you've seen it, somebody has been, you know, fined millions of money for doing that, then you are not going to do it. So it's on the enforcement part. If they can enforce those policies, those regulations, then it can be a good system.
So it's just a matter of thinking around it. It's something that he brought up, and you're still conversing around it to see in what way can it be beneficial at the end of the day for us as a country. There's also one thing that we've had constantly, even as we talk about the issues of drought, because of course, I mean, climate change. We are listening to Red Cross talking about, you know, counties in alert, counties in alarm. I know this is holistically 29 counties which, you know, have been affected by this issue. But when you talk about alert and alarm phase, what exactly are we meaning, and to what extent is the situation dire?
So when you talk about the alert or alarm phase, for example, it depends with the situation. There are some people who, for example, they can access food. Maybe they could not produce this year because of the drought, but they can produce in the next season when they receive rains. So maybe their soils are still good, you know, and, you know, maybe they can reach to, you know, do irrigation, for example. But there are those situation whereby you just look at the soils, the rivers are drying, you know, and we've seen it over time. So it's also something that they've been monitoring over time. For you to say that this is an alarm or an alert situation, it has to have been monitored over time, so that you can give that specific that specification that this county is on alert, or this county is on alarm phase. So it is monitoring over time and seeing how they can bounce back. If it cannot bounce back, then, you know, you're going to that, you know,
complete red.
You're going to that red. But if you can still bounce back, even with little showers, for example, then you can, you know, remain on the alarm, not on the alert.
So then, are you doing anything in terms of sensitization again when you talk about diversifying of our crops production? Because you talked about how we have so much been accustomed to certain types of crops, but with the effects of climate change, we need to start rethinking. What are you doing with respect to that?
So for Just Dig It, we are really focusing mainly on pastoral areas where people deal with livestock. And so now we are looking at the pastures, which is very important. So what kind of pastures are we dealing with? So now you have to get the right species. There's
just like the trees,
just like the trees. So you have to get the right species that is well adapted to that area. Then now you can, you know, that's just a form of, and another form of, you know, diversification now is looking at, you know, you cannot use one intervention, for example, to solve climate change. You also have to you have to diversify in terms of interventions, you know, and combine those interventions. So one intervention may not, you know, give you the results, but if you can combine several interventions,
so again, diversify even in interventions.
All right.
So everything diversify. Don't be static. Just be dynamic. As we sort of like begin to wind down, Jackie, COP27 beginning next week. I think it's going to be like a 3 or 4 days, you know, forum there. The theme this year being delivering for the people and the planet. This has been an annual kind of event, the Conference of Parties touching on climate change. What should like the globe expect, so that it just doesn't become nations or states coming together to deliberate on climate change and we can barely see much in terms of implementation?
So in my own view, I'm just hoping that these states, especially from these high-end countries, they are seeing the dire situation in Africa. They are seeing, you know, drought ravaging communities, people dying because of hunger, animals dying because of hunger. We have livestock, you know, we have wildlife dying because of, hunger, and that is going to affect us even in the tourism sector, for example. We have wildfires. For example, the other day we had Kilimanjaro burning. So those effects, I really hope that those high-end countries are seeing the effects that are in Africa, and when they come to this COP27, they should, discuss or negotiate in a way that it is going to have a positive impact for us. So in terms of climate action and financing, we are really hoping, and for me, because I have that passion of regenerating degraded landscapes. If they can really look into that financing and finance Africa to be able to adopt these technologies and implement them so that we can reverse climate change. As much as we are contributing less and they are contributing more to climate change, then they should really play their part and ensure that we get the right financing, we get the right, and we have the technologies with us. So it's for us, it's just the financing, and we can roll on with the technologies.
I like what you've said, that much as we are contributing less, of course you have a part to play, but also they should do their part because they're equally contributing much. Thank you so much, Jackie. That was such a cogent discussion there. At least now we understand where we are as a country, what more we need to do to mitigate these issues of climate change. It's an ongoing crisis, actually, and that's why these conversations are very pertinent at this hour. Jacqueline Kemboi has been my guest at this hour, talking about matters of climate change, just land restoration to mitigate climate change. Of course, this intertwined with the adverse effects of drought that you're currently facing as a country. Good place to end this conversation, but also quite important for me to inform you that we are equally following up on some of these stories for you. For instance, the East Africa Community Regional Force flag handover will be taking place today. This is at the Embakasi Garrison. So the minute we get that link, we shall be crossing over there to just prune you and prime you on the latest from that particular end. But good place to also end Good Morning Kenya from me and on behalf of the entire team. Asante sana. We always appreciate your valued company, 6:30 all the way to 10 a.m. But now we want to pave way for Parliament, which is coming up next. Good morning.
Kupata skiza tune ya mambo mema, dial *811 *815#.
Mambo mema huwaendea watu wanaosubiri, ila mambo mema zaidi huwaendea watu wanaoyatafuta. Kupata mambo mema ni kufanikiwa, na kufanikiwa ni kutabasamu, kutafakari na kuhesabu mema na baraka ulizozichukulia hatua, ukazitafuta na kuzipata. Amka, tafuta ufanisi wako.
Kupata skiza tune ya mambo mema, dial *811 *815#. *811 *815#.
Kakamega mpo. Stesheni uipendayo Ingo FM inakuletea road show ya mwaka katika kaunti ya Kakamega, Ijumaa tarehe 4 na Jumamosi tarehe 5 Novemba. Tarehe 4 Ijumaa tunazuru Mumias, Matungu, Shianda, Navaholo, Malava, kambi ya Mwanza, Lurambi, na tarehe 5 Jumamosi tukutane pale Kakamega, Hayega, Malinya, Bukura, Huisero, Mulwanda, Sabatia, Ekero na Mumias Town. Kutakuwa na vichekesho na burdan dosha. Pia utakutana na kikosi kizima cha watangazaji na waenzi wa Ingo FM. Usikose.
Radio Ingo, ingini ya Mwitala. Kakamega na yefu bwana.